If you don't have the culture of working, you can't be a good pastor.
Okay.
Pastors who run into ministry thinking that ministry is about prophesying, walking on the ceiling, hanging from the chandelier, and receiving offering.
Repeat that, walking on the ceiling.
Walking on the ceiling. I became a Christian at 17. But when I was 18 years old, I got filled with the Holy Spirit. And it was on a Wednesday.
Jeez, you remember the day?
I'll give you the date even. I think about it every day. I'm going to stand before God and give an account one day. Will I really receive the words, well done, good and faithful servant? For me, it's not a career. When I received Christ, they were not preaching the message of hellfire and brimstone. They were preaching the message of love and grace. They ignored me, not Pastor Ray, but some of the people who worked there. They didn't know my name. I would go into their offices to go and collect mail. They'd make me stand there for an hour without talking to me.
Sure.
I learned that people can confess Christ and behave differently.
King David Studio Podcast.
I tell you all the time that I'm one of the luckiest people I've ever met because I get to hang out leading hanga in every sense of the word. From those that take themselves serious and those that are really serious. And today I have Bishop, Mosa Sono. I hope you're well.
Yes, David, I'm very well, by God's grace.
Yeah.
And just want to thank you for inviting me here. You have a very powerful platform. Your programs are very educative and very inspiring.
Thank you.
I just like the way you do your work.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the contribution you're making, not only to our country but to the world, but more so in our country, I think, because when we hear people from our own background, particularly people who've made advancement in life, it talks to us at so many levels. I think something that our country desperately needs.
That's true.
So many people think that they cannot because of their background, because of financial constraints, and a million other things. But with the people you've brought on the program here and the subject matter that you've dealt with, it just makes success something that's reachable. Maybe not easy, not common, but possible. And I think one of the things I really live for is to strike a vision of possibility in the hearts of people. Yeah. Because that's what the gospel is about.
Do you feel that we lack that, the ability to see the possible?
Yes. Look, it's no secret we're surrounded by a lot of negativity in our country. You don't have to go look for negative stories. They're there. And sadly enough, I think our society has also become fairly negative, and maybe sometimes understandably so. Our country is not really having the best of things going on right now. Yeah, everything, when almost like everything is falling apart, you end up being negative. And I often say when I talk to people, I think we need to have an overdose of positivity. Yeah, an overdose, because if you can get someone to see light at the end of the tunnel or have a vision that sparks something in their hearts, then all that negativity, even if it's there, won't stop them. They may take longer to get to their goal.
Yes.
But as long as that fire is burning in them, it's hard to stoke the fire of passion for vision and achievement in people when they're surrounded by negativity. So please continue doing what you're doing. And everybody out there who's inspiring people in our nation, please continue doing what you're doing, because we need an overdose of possibility in our country.
Do you know, I remember a former CEO of the SABC who said, the news must be positive.
Yeah.
We can't all tell bad stories.
Yes.
He was bashed because good stories do not draw an audience, unfortunately. We've become so used to them that we want to see more of the negative stories.
And I hope I'm not bashed by people in the media. Certainly this I'm very appreciative of.
Yeah.
But I personally, having interacted with the media for many years, I think there is some element of truth to that. And by the way, this is not just a South African phenomenon. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Yeah. And maybe even with us as human beings, we just like the negative stories. We just like bad news. We just like it when things don't go well. That's what attracts things. We seem to be more enthused to talk about and criticize and talk about what's not right than what's not right than what's right. And I think we definitely, in fact, when you say this, you remind me of the late Dr. Yonggi Cho, who was the leader of the Yoido Full Gospel Church in South Korea. Yeah. His church ended up actually having a newspaper that was circulated nationally.
Wow.
Yes, and it all started because they felt that the publishing companies that were there, people were not focusing on positive news. And their newspaper was full of very positive news, and yes, I think it's a real point that we need some positivity, really.
Yeah. Do you have anyone who calls you anything else besides Bishop Mosa Sono, as in Mos?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've got all kinds of titles.
Really?
My wife, of course.
What does she call you?
She calls me Mogatso.
Which
is very endearing.
100%.
Yeah.
Give my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we call each other Chomi, as a friend, And then, of course, my sisters who call me Abut Musa. And I've got my elder sister, or younger sister as well, who calls me Pastor.
Where does that come from?
It's a pastor.
Oh, Pastor, of course. Pastor,
yes.
Yes.
And then I've got my brother-in-law who calls me Tamos.
Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah. And I've got people who call me Malume.
Yes.
And I've got all kinds of titles that I go by.
You seem quite easy with these things, because it's easy for people to get caught up in the titles they get, whether honorary or David, self-imposed.
Listen, I think we take ourselves too seriously sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. At the end of the day, we are just normal, natural people. We are somebody's husband. We are somebody's dad. Yes. We are somebody's uncle. We're a member of the community.
That's true.
We are a friend. We are a neighbor. I like to keep it at that, because I just think when you look at the example of our Lord Jesus Christ, and it's not a put on, to be honest with you, Jesus lived in a very normal, natural way. And I think that's where my concern sometimes is when people talk about spirituality, sometimes, I used to go to the gym. I'm not going there now. I'll go back one day.
I hope so.
Yeah, please.
I'm still planning. My belly is ruining my name.
Well, I think I'm one step ahead. Yeah. And so I used to train with people. I never ever introduced myself as a pastor. I don't ever. And so I'm training with these guys who, when the training gets hard, they start using some expellatives.
Oh,
yeah.
Colorful language.
Very colorful. And then somehow they get to find out I'm pastor. And I always used to love watching them. And then on that particular day when that awareness has come, I could really see them struggle to contain themselves.
That's funny.
And then they'd come and ask me, "Are you really a pastor?" And I'd say, "Yes." And I could almost hear their mind saying, "You mean I have been saying all these vulgar things all this time and you never said anything?" I think it's great to just be normal, natural, relatable, and all of that. Because I think sometimes when we allow what has happened in our lives to go to our heads, we end up not knowing how to reach people.
Yes.
I think reaching people, you have to connect with people, not from achievement, but from their humanness. And I mean, if you see the way Jesus was approached by all kinds of people, children, people who had done wrong, he hung around with people that the religious group criticized him for that. I think sometimes we let this thing of Murutu or Bishop go to our heads. Yeah. But then there's the other side, unfortunately, David, wherein other people unfortunately cross the line. Yeah.
For example?
You see a 15-year-old calling me Mosa.
Oh.
I'm an African. Come on. Yeah. I mean, come on now.
That is not even...
Or calling me you guys, and I'm thinking, now, how batung?
But that has little to do with being a pastor. It has everything to do with just normal, natural respect.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
It's not even about being a pastor.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying, that sometimes when you are that kind of person who doesn't impose who you are on people. Unfortunately, there are people who are very few, by the way, though, I must say, who sometimes just cross the line. And sometimes they say, go to bishop, and I don't care if you're a bishop, you are this. Yeah, there are some who call, or some of your friends who know you from Mandulo, and they say, Mosa, Usuli Bishop, you know.
Akutungqondo.
Yeah. But it's all part of life, David.
It
It's
is.
just one of those things that happens in life. It's not a problem.
Where were you born?
I was born actually in Sophia town.
Wow.
Yeah. And Khantle, it's at Western Native Township next to Sophia town.
Right
That's
there.
just right there.
Yes.
Yeah, way back 1961. 3rd of April,
Untwana.
1961.
Untwana.
Yeah. I don't think so. However, in the same year, we were moved from Western Native Township to Moroka, which is known as Rockville,
Yes.
through forced removals.
So you did you experience that? Did you? Because I've had so many conversations with people here. Did you see that forced removal?
I was too young. I mean, I was a few months old.
Oh.
I was a few months old. It's in the
course.
same year, 1961, when we were moved. I think we were moved probably towards the end of 61, when we were moved to Rockville, which is exactly where I grew up the rest of my life, by the way.
Yes.
So, I can kasi
True and true.
through and through. Education, everything you know about me is township. I don't know
Soweto.
suburb. I don't know overseas. I just know Soweto. I just know Kasi. That's where I was born, raised, buttered, breaded,
Everything.
everything.
I want to pause. I need water. Suddenly my throat just got weird.
Askies. So my throat is doing better than yours.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Because I've seen yours act up once in a while.
Oh my goodness me! Oh my goodness me! I have too many speaking engagements. I mean, think about last week. We were doing prayer for the whole week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd speak for an hour and a half, just about preach.
It's a lot.
And then now this week I'm doing the morning prayer, right, from 5 until 6. And then remember, I come from a weekend. Sunday I did 3 services. Yeah. So it's a lot. I use my voice a lot.
Quite
and
a bit.
unfortunately, I didn't learn to. I need to go for that, I think.
So you know how to preserve it.
Yeah.
But they're likely to tell you to do one service a week, or rather a day.
Well, it's not gonna
Therein
happen.
lies the problem.
Therein
Therein lies your challenge.
And the
Jeez.
problem, I guess, is that when you get on the pulpit, it's hard for me to go 50%.
Hey.
It's very difficult. I just get into it
Yeah.
so passionately that before you know where you are,
The voice is gone.
Yeah. And I don't know why I have to scream because I have a microphone. Bless me. And these guys are good sound technicians.
Maybe you can tell me why you need to scream. Why do you think you feel the need to? Because it's a common practice.
I don't know.
Amongst
Frankly,
men
I
of
guess
the
that's
cloth.
I guess that's just how we were cultured. And that's not what we were taught in Bible school. But the school I went to, they never told us anything about voice control and nothing.
The transition between Kasi and that township. What memories have you been told about the Sophia town of that time? What stories
my
have
parents
you
used to talk a lot about Sophia town,
Yes.
how they were very integrated there. They lived with one another. The proximity to going to town, they didn't have to use public transport. And I think the melting pot of so many different cultures in music, through arts, the coming in of gangsters, when some of the younger people took up to the American way, dress code, knowing about America, wearing American, and then having like the young Americans, like Mapatsola kind, and very vibey place. I mean, they used to talk so affectionately about that place that so that they told me about it. I never got to experience it because I was too young.
But we clearly lost a lot. I remember Darlington Michaels, talking about experiences similar to that.
Yes.
About the melting pot, the racial integration.
Very much so.
That clearly one morning it just ended.
It just ended, and people were driven to different areas, dissected, and told, you are Sotho and you must stay here, you are Zulu. I grew up in an area in Rockville called Sotho section.
Okay.
And so there was also Zulu section. And if you walked in the Zulu section from Sotho section, you got it coming. And we were not far from White City, Jabavu. and Morocco North. Now, the municipal office where we used to pay rent was in White City, Jabov.
Okay.
So, as I grew up, I had to go and pay rent. And the minute you got there, you were beaten up or they would take money from you. Nangumsut, yeah. So, we had to learn Zulu by fire, by force,
To survive.
just to survive. And then when I went to school, I went to Molaetsa Primary School. It's in White City. First day at school, I was mugged.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What's a guy? Because it's
maybe just 2 cents.
nothing.
It was 2 cents or something, but it was money,
Of course.
Yeah, 2 cents or 5 cents. Marked at knife point.
Oh, no.
How old was I? I was 6 years old. 6 years old. I never forget that experience. First day at school.
Yes.
And unfortunately, throughout my schooling life, I always had someone. I don't know how to say it in English. I was
They
bullied
put you
a
on
lot.
a bumper.
They put me on a bumper and bullied me. I was bullied quite a lot.
Do you know
growing up.
why? Is it small frame? Is it?
I was small framed.
Yeah.
And I guess because the places we went to were outside of where we lived.
Yeah.
And even closer to my home, there's a place called Morocco North. There used to be a guy there who would waylay me.
Oh, no.
Because, when I went to school, I used to pass through their yard. I can tell you what English says. We say it's double up.
Double up.
So we took it double up.
You were double upping.
I was double upping.
Yes.
And he would waylay me there. And later on in life, I wondered, why didn't I use an alternative road? Why did I have to?
Do you know something crazy? We have a similar story.
Yeah.
But I was not going through his yard or
Yeah.
her yard. It was a lady in
Yeah,
our case.
yeah.
We were going corner house and we had to use her street to get to our school.
Yes.
And she would take our money.
Oh, yeah.
And years later, I said I had probably 20 other alternative routes.
Just shows you how the mind of a child works. Right?
But I was taking the same route.
This guy would take my money. He would sometimes beat me up. But I finally told my dad about it. And I never forget this experience, and I use it in preaching, He is waylaying me. He stops me. So I'm looking at him, and he's saying all these things and he wants my money. Because somehow I had a habit of saving up my money, I just had that habit. So he wants my money. And then as I'm looking at him, behind him, I see my daddy walking up, and he's not aware because I told my dad what's going on. And all of a sudden, I became very cheeky towards this guy. And I could see he can't believe. And then he heard this big booming voice. My dad.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you, when my dad came in, I felt like I'm like Schwarzenegger. I thought we can take him on, So when I preach, I tell people that's how, when you know God is with you, there's no situation that you can't handle because, if God's with you, it doesn't matter what's against you. But that's just how I grew up, And
it's such an amazing analogy because more if you speak it from the perspective of the child.
Yes.
Who, when they realize the presence of protection,
Yes.
they get stronger.
Very strong.
It is a spiritual
Very
experience.
strong. And by the way, that was the last time that guy messed with me.
Of course.
And I still used the double up. But I was very bold and cheeky. Yeah, because I know my dad will take care of this. And I tell people, if you have that perspective about God, knowing that God is for you, you'll never be scared of anything.
Primary school, what you said, that school, did you benefit anything academically when you recall your upbringing from that school?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Molaetsa Primary School was one of the best schools. It was led by a very capable lady called Mam Lintle. And we had incredible school teachers from primary school. And not only did they give us good education, they taught us good ethics, good behavior, the culture of working. Our school, back then we used to clean the yard, was the cleanest.
Clean the classrooms.
Yeah. And they were very, how do I put it, very thorough in their style of teaching. And I can tell you, David, that is the one time when I got to appreciate the capacity that women have.
Amazing.
and the incredible leadership of women. And I didn't realize it until later on when I reflected on it. It made such a big impression on me. Because there's one teacher, Mrs. Likeba, I even, got to be in touch with her until she passed on. She taught me remember we had Sub A, Sub B, Standard 1, Standard 2. She was my teacher in Standard 1 and Standard 2.
Yeah.
Malikeba. Very neat lady, very strict lady, but very capable lady.
Yeah.
And she really helped us. And I mean, we had extramural activities, we did music, we did handwork, which I didn't like, by the way.
Oh, no. Is it because you're not good with your hands?
I'm not great with handwork, drawing. If I draw something for you, you'll run away. I don't know. I can see beautiful art, but please don't give me anything to do with
You're an
hands.
audience, not
Except
a participant.
Except lay hands on the sick,
Of course. Jeez.
Yeah. But and if I may also add on this thing about the impression I got about the incredible things about what women did. My great-grandmother had a house there in White City, Jabavu. So my mother at the time was a house manager.
Okay.
So when I came back from school, I'd find her. But there'd be days when she'd have to go and do something somewhere. And she'd tell me to go to my grandmother's house, which was in White City, not far from the school. My great-grandmother was one of the neatest women you ever met.
Wow.
Those who know White City Jabavu, it's this cluster of houses that has A, B, and C.
Okay.
It's all it's just
one
one big, but then you share. There's
Okay.
it's like a 2-roomed
Okay.
or 3-roomed.
Do they share a wall?
They share a wall, and you
Yes.
have your own piece. It's you have separate entrances.
Okay.
You know.
Aren't they those loaf-like houses?
Aha, loaf-like
Yes,
houses.
yes.
That's all made out of concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, that concrete is still around even today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
My grandmother, I think she was in a 2-roomed house. And she would sweep the outside. There was no paving, just all soil. But she would sweep in a pattern. When you entered the yard, there was a pattern leading to...
You're afraid to mess up the pattern.
The stoop then used to be a red stoop, where they used to apply sunbeam polish. It was always shiny. You get into the house, and everything is in place. The stove, welcome Dover stove, is shiny. It's black. What should black? There's a pot there that's shining. Of course, there's no food. She wasn't very rich. There's nothing in it, but it's shining. When we slept at her house, we used to use sheets. Now, young people won't understand that. Those days, there was no sheets. We used to sleep, cut these blankets called marahatonki.
Of course, I know it
the
well.
Marahatonki?
Yes, I know it well.
But she used to sew sheets, and she would actually use the containers of millimil. You remember millimil used to come in sackcloth?
Yes.
She would collect that, sew it together, put it in bleach so that it's all white, and make a sheet out of it.
Because they used to make them in nice fabric.
Or beautiful
Yes,
fabric.
yes.
That's when I learned the lesson from my grandmother. Number one, poor as she was, she had high standards. So I learned wherever you are, you can be the best. Doesn't matter what level. The second thing was, not everything needs money for you to solve. She used those sheets. She was creative. So you can take little and make more out of it.
That's true.
And a lot out of it. And I didn't realize, but all these are women. So I was just surrounded. By the way, at home, I have 4 sisters.
Jeez.
My mother, the entire family, they were 4 sisters, just all girls.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a family of women and girls.
And leaders, women leaders.
Incredible leaders. My mother, strongest woman you ever found. Very entrepreneurial. Strict like her mom and her grandmother. Meticulous. Taught me, and she never allowed me to enjoy the privilege of being the only boy.
Oh, none of that.
No.
Do you know how to cover your own books?
Oh, yeah.
Because I got away with that.
I could cover my books. I used to clean
Wow.
at house.
Yes.
I used to make breakfast at home. Even today, I still make breakfast. I used to make breakfast for the whole family, for my sisters.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The only thing she wouldn't let us do is to do washing and cook. She preferred to do that herself. But I worked. I did all the jobs. So I worked with my dad in the garden, worked with my sisters in the house.
Amazing.
And so
you got the best of both worlds.
really did. I can't be grateful enough, David, because, and you don't realize what that does to you. Because for me, it was normal. I see a female, this is a woman, she's got potential, she has the ability to lead, and that's just how I related with them. And so it was very normal for me to understand that aspect of women. And then grew up in a good home. My father who loved my mother. I mean, that man loved his wife. Hey, munna.
What did you notice that early
He was
age?
a school teacher.
Yeah.
And he would come back from school and he'd be home around 5 o'clock. When he arrived home, my dad and my mom would sit alone in the dining room, the two of them. And I know Kimuruti, but Kikopa to say it this way. You don't understand what I mean? I never told them. Yeah, they would talk for an hour, just the two of them, drinking tea, everything. When my dad passed, I was there when he passed. And I was there for my mother. And when I saw the pain in her face, and then she'd say to me, Mosa, my son, I was loved by a man. And I see her face beaming like a 16-year-old girl who's been kissed for the first time. That made impressions on me, David. I don't know. I don't know if I can be half the man my dad was.
Yeah.
In terms of loving his wife and loving his kids. Took care of 4 girls, never abused them, raised strong women. I mean, my dad was just, I don't know. And I didn't realize. I thought this was normal. So in growing up, and when I became a pastor, I think I made a lot of mistake in assuming that everybody came from the same advantaged background. I learned the hard way because I would talk affectionately about these things. And I remember the one friend screamed at me and said, "You're hurting me." I said, "Why?"
Yeah.
He said, "I never had a background like yours." That's the first time I realized. So I had to be very careful in how I talk about that side of my life. Yeah. But I then became so aware how that was not necessarily the norm.
It was actually a rarity
That
to
influenced
have a
me
household like that.
That influenced me, therefore, in how we teach this gospel in church. Yeah. That in our church, then, we decided to have a month dedicated to teaching about family. Wow. We call it Family Seminar Month. Deal with everything about family. That background has so influenced how I do ministry today and raised my awareness.
When you have such women that you grow around, surely it must influence the type of women that you end up with.
Yes, it did. My wife is a splitting image of my mom.
Whoa.
Not so much necessarily in looks, but in mannerisms. Yeah. She's a strict woman. She's a very hard-working woman, a leader of note, very domestic, and just, how do I say it? Someone that is so great to be in love with her, But someone who's strong is great when you're on the same page. So my wife and I always laugh, because the way we relate, we love each other very deeply. Yeah. But we're not this lovey-dovey, touchy-touchy type.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we're very intimate, extremely, But because we're two strong leaders, it's great when we're on there. So we've had to work it out in our marriage,
Did at some point you had to, when two bulls in the same kraal, surely there must be moments where they butt heads.
Oh, more than once.
Oh.
But we set up our lives from the onset to keep ourselves accountable to people who are senior, not our family, but people who anytime could come in and give us counseling. Okay. And we've used those services.
More than once.
More than once.
Who always encourages the idea of consulting? This one.
Either of us, it depends.
Yes.
Either of us. And of course, it hasn't happened in the last several years.
Yes.
But in those early days, it was bad.
Is it true, the concept that marriages are bound to go through strain?
Yes.
And it's in the surviving the strain that you're able to come out of it much stronger.
You see, most people don't understand the reality and the complexity of bringing two people together. One is male and female. That's problems enough. Because just our way of defining the world and looking at things, just the way we are wired in J,
Yes.
already Kabayona is an issue.
Yeah.
Two, you are bringing people with two different backgrounds.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Three, people with values that may be different. And that is why it's so problematic when you marry someone that you don't have certain commonalities on, particularly on certain major things about life. You know, like I tell people, when it comes to your religious beliefs, when it comes to what's the standard of right and wrong, when it comes to agreement about loyalty and faithfulness, there are those things. So even before you can say I do, there are certain things you must settle. One of the things I knew myself was that in her case, she said she wasn't going to marry a guy who didn't have a good moral life. She said no. She wanted someone who would love Jesus and so on. You know.
You started with 10 points ahead.
Well, at least, but also for me, that was that as well. But also, I just needed someone who is domestic. Now, at the risk of people thinking not to work for me, I'm very domestic, but I couldn't imagine myself living in a home of a woman who is disorganized. And who really didn't know how to take care of things. Because I was raised in an atmosphere like that. Even though I help to make that atmosphere. But I would wish for my wife to be that way. Because I knew that would be a bone of contention. So before we got married, I had to establish certain things and she had to establish certain things. So I find that people, before they marry, before they say I do, they don't ask the hard questions. And they don't familiarize themselves with one another long enough to know that I think this one, because even if you have this compatibility, there's still a lot of things you have to work through.
Even if you love each other.
Even if you love each other.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that when we're at odds with each other, what becomes the standard of right and wrong? What becomes the reference to say, no, we're no wrong, we're no right?
Because this is our benchmark.
This is our benchmark. And none of us is going to violate that, no matter how I feel. That becomes the guiding point. So when people don't have those things established, I tell you, you are in for a very tumultuous, and that's why you see the rate of marriages that are not working being so high in the world. Yeah. You know? And if for those who are married, who are still in marriage, they'll tell you, we had to work through it. A good marriage doesn't just become. It becomes because you make it good. But it's also about sacrifice. It's also about learning to forgo certain things and compromise. And it's about having frank conversations, understanding each other, and a host of other.
We live in an era where you hear more and more people saying marriage is a bad idea. I'm not heading in that direction. I did a show. I did a show beginning of this year where I asked people, what is your big plan ngomjolo in 2025? And most of them said, hey, he doesn't know. I'm leaving him. She doesn't know. I'm ending this. And there was a common commentary that suggested that people are saying, this marriage thing is not a good idea.
Did you know that? Well, look, marriage is difficult and challenging. It starts out like that, but it doesn't have to stay like that. It doesn't have to stay like that. If you work at it, it becomes a good marriage. And I'm not saying good because there's no problems. Because remember, anywhere you are, even in what you're doing, there's problems. There's days when things,
Even friendships have problems.
But you know what people don't know, David, is that statistics, this is statistics. Statistics show that married people live a better life than unmarried people. These are stats. These are right across the world. They live longer, they're happier, they have better financial lives, and surprise, surprise, they have a better sex life than other people.
Let me add to that. They raise well-balanced kids.
By far. So there's a lot more of I think the problem is that maybe we don't want to let go of what's mine. You see, I think we live in a world where me is first. And I'm not talking about abuse here. I'm not talking about abuse. I've got to have my rights. But there are things that even if I want to do them, they don't set well with my wife. They don't set well with my wife. And it wouldn't cost much to forego that.
So you're saying we hold on to things that we can easily give up and have a normal life and a pleasant life.
When the Bible says the two shall become one flesh, we haven't understood how loaded that statement is. to become one flesh. Think about a team of players who are great players. I mean, these guys are top of their game.
Yeah.
You put them in a soccer team, for instance, and each one of them is
the
a
current
star.
Pirate squad.
Yeah. And all of them are yeah. So
Whether you agree.
I agree.
I knew it.
So for them to be a great team, they have to learn to leverage one another's strengths, to understand the other person. It's about working through that. The same concept in marriage. And I've never understood why people don't understand. You have to work at your marriage.
Yes.
It will not be good on its own. It becomes good because you make it good. And both men and women have to take time to understand the other. You know, I mean, we must understand why a woman would want for you to spend, generally speaking, there may be variances, but she wants you to spend time with her, talking, conversing, being at home, right? Her way of feeling intimacy is through conversation and whatever. A man, in his expression of love, he brings things. He buys things. Now, I say... when
you throw money at the problem.
But David, that's how we're wired. You see, my point has been, let's not try to change the man. Let the woman understand, this man buys me this because he loves me. That's our way of saying I love you. But conversely so. This woman is asking that I shouldn't go there, stay and talk to her because she loves me. Now, we don't want to forego that. We don't want to forego that. So, but if you work at it long enough, you get to a point where you understand. You'll always fall into your default mechanism because you are a man, you are a woman. That's why, you know.
So you always have to remind yourself
You
to
have
go
to.
back.
That's why I say you have to work at it. Even after years, you still work at it.
Sure.
Yeah, I've listened to couples who, I think there's a one couple they interviewed, they'd been married, I think if I remember, for 70 years. And they still had arguments with each other. But they loved one another. And that's the thing. People think when they argue, then love is no longer there.
Yes.
You know? But love is there. And it depends. How do you define love? Yeah. What is love? If I was to go to the Bible, love is a commitment to be patient, kind, to not be self-serving, and all those other traits. It's got feelings and emotions in it, but those come after the commitment.
Got you.
And if you have the commitment, the feelings are more on fire. I love my wife more now, after 36 years of marriage, than I did when we started.
That's amazing.
That's my girl. I love her. Now, do we fight? Of course we do.
But it doesn't mean you're breaking up.
No, we're not. Yes. And that's the other thing we committed to, my wife and I.
Yeah.
The word divorce is not in our vocabulary.
Wow.
Period.
Yeah.
But then that means let's not make for things that would make that, you know, if I'm abusive.
Make that a possibility.
Yeah, if I'm abusive and I beat her up, you know, I mean, really, you know. You know, or if she starts going around with other guys, you know. No, so let's not do that. And so I think people don't commit to certain values, certain commitments. Yeah. You have to work at it. Personally, I am one who want to raise the standard of marriage and tell people it's doable, people. Have people who walk with you. And that's what helped us. We have people who've walked with us, even now who still walk with us.
Amazing.
That both of us are believers, and depends, people have different belief systems, but for us, the Bible is our reference point. God's word is reference. We pray about it. We ask God to help us. You know, we do our best. If we've done wrong to each other, we forgive each other, as the Bible says. We say, I'm sorry, or bendi wrong, you know, whatever.
You don't find it difficult to admit fault when you're wrong.
I try. I'm not always good at it. I must confess.
So you're the problem.
I think so. Not all the time, though. But I think sometimes. But also, I think our manner of resolving problems, as men, generally speaking, when there's a problem, we withdraw. We go into our cocoon, we get quiet. You know, our way of solving a problem is, I don't want to talk about it, you know. That's how we solve it.
Yes, that doesn't help.
No, because she's not going to stop saying, let's talk. Yeah, she's going to be on your case until you talk. But I think men and women both bring certain challenges into marriage. But if they're willing to work at it, I think my wife and I, also that she's in the ministry with me, adds another dynamic of complexity.
Of course.
You know,
We
Yeah,
don't
but
agree
we've-
on stuff,
No.
even in the church system.
But we had to agree as well. hore kana ke nna senior kwale. And that makes it very complex because go ga ke hani come servicing ke senior.
Oh, boss.
But sometimes that gets forgotten, you know.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
No, but it's fine. you know, David, like I said when we started, I think sometimes we're too rigid. We too stiff. Life rolls on, and if you take it as it comes and you try to be authentic, we're not the best of people, but just be truthful and authentic.
Yeah.
And if you do that, don't try to put out a picture. I mean, where you are, that's where you are. Where else are you going to be?
This is it.
Yeah, if I'm having problems in my home, I have problems in my home.
Mm.
You know, and that's this overemphasis of people when they try to tell us how in love they are. You know, bazalwana bathi yazi ujeso kitchen, ujeso dining room, ujeso yonke indawo. You know, and they're trying to give us this expression ukuthi ekhaya njena asilwi. You are always smiling, we're always worshiping. I just look at these guys and say, hey guys, just keep quiet. We know better. We're your pastors. We've been counseling you all the time. Just be real.
Yeah.
Just doesn't mean don't celebrate what's good. Celebrate what's good, but don't be over dramatic about it. Just be real.
Something you said earlier about marriage, people not wanting to get married, that they're holding on
Yes,
to things that they don't want to give up.
true.
Could those things be, I enjoy my time and I want to
Yeah.
spend it on myself?
Let me put it this way: there are things that should be non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to values, there are things that you should be non-negotiable, particularly morals and values.
Yes.
That's
The right and wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
those should be non-negotiable. But there are things that, if you're going to get married, if you're not willing to share yourself, don't do it.
Yes.
Because marriage is about sharing, is about compromise, is about giving the other person what they wish for. If you put you first all the time in marriage, you are in for a disaster. Now, it doesn't mean you should be a doormat. It doesn't mean your needs don't matter. But you can always have your way. There are times when you do it because it pleases your partner. I'll give you an example. My wife doesn't like for us to have dishes, in the sink at night after we've had our dinner.
Makes sense.
Well, but sometimes we come home at 10 o'clock, bro. You know.
You're too tired to solve this
Very.
problem.
And then you'll find that she's tired. Maybe she goes back and then she sleeps. And then I'm looking at these dishes. And I know if I don't do something about it, it's going to be an issue. So even if I'm unhappy, I do it.
That's you giving up something.
I've just given up my sleep and given up something. And of course, it's nicer the following day if she can recognize what I did.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Why does that recognition matter so much for men?
I think when they study how we are wired, men always like to be recognized for achievement. Yeah. Our way of communicating love is by tangible things. So acknowledgement says, I'm aware that you are trying.
Yes.
I'm aware. So it's just the way we're wired. And that's where it's a very important thing. That's how we're wired. You see, what I find strange, David, is that we try to change a woman from being female. There are things that females are wired like that by God, and for a good reason. Yeah. For a good reason. They are more in touch with their emotions. They're far more, they want to talk more. Or you see, no, we want to cut that out from their life. But also, even in us wanting to be recognized, people say, no, you're going to trim your pride. I say, no, it's got nothing to do with pride. Yes. That's just how the man is wired. I personally think that we've lived in an age where people are very lazy to try and study how we are. And the best marriage is when the husband and wife try. And these are generalities, by the way. There's places where, let me give you an example. In my house, in my home, my wife is the one who handles the money. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She handles the money.
Is it because you can't count?
I can count.
Yeah.
I can count. But she's a better manager. I'm a good manager, but she's a better manager.
Okay.
Because also she also buys other things like food in the house,
True.
things
The necessities.
for other necessities
Yes.
that I wouldn't readily think about if I was to do it. So when we get our salaries, it comes into my account, her account, but she has access to my account, but she administrates all that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we get pocket money, equal amounts. I'm still complaining, comrades. I'm supposed to be the head of the home. Yeah.
Is your pocket money not enough for you?
It's not enough because I've got other extra murals I'm doing.
But
Sometimes she understands, sometimes she doesn't. But we get enough money. So I really lazy too. Yeah. But that's how it is in my home. That's how it is in my home. Now,
And it's working, the system.
look, when the children are sick, when they were young, I'm the nurse in the home.
Okay.
I'm the one who does the medication, take them to the doctor, and it's fine. Even her, when she's sick, I take care of her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
She does it. She asks me, what must I do now?
Wow,
And it's okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but we've grown to accept that about one another. So every home will have its, but the goal here and the gist of it is that make it work for yourself. Make room for each other. Accept your diversity, the dynamic person you are. Embrace it. Don't try to change it. And then be considerate of the other person. Certain things, even if they may be whatever, they don't like them, if possible, forgo them. Now, you will default into that.
Naturally.
You're
human.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know. So that's how we roll at home.
What is the long-term implication of a guy who feels unappreciated? What is the result of
They'll
of
try
that
to find
setting?
appreciation somewhere else.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what men will do.
Yeah.
They long for appreciation. So that's where people end up doing stuff that is, because, and you wonder, and I hear sometimes ladies say, how can he leave me for such a kind of a woman who's below my standard? Then I say, well, probably the other one is appreciating him
More
than you do.
You say it so loudly and so clearly, it comes across almost as a deal breaker for the psyche of a man.
It does.
Yeah.
What we haven't managed to do, David, which we're trying to do, and I'm not saying we're better than other people, we're trying to do in our church, is to talk about, there's a guy who does a program where he talks about marriage, but it's in a very fun way. And he paints the differences between a man and a woman. I tell you, David, it's unbelievable how different we are. I'm telling you the truth. And then there's a book that was written years ago. Men are from Mars.
Yes,
you
Men Are
remember?
from Venus, yes.
And these are all attempts to try and generalities to paint the different ways we are wired. I think there's very little discussion around that and very little talk. And I think even when people want to get married, we don't talk about those things. Because, let me give an example. Guys, baratao ploma. I mean, men baratao ploma. You can say what you like.
Yes.
Guys, baratao ploma. Right?
And talk about
So
stuff.
they go out with friends by lo ploma. Now, when he leaves home a lo ploma, and then the wife feels neglected and says, and I say to her, Bona, mutlogele. He'll come back a better guy. As long as I bloma with the right crowd.
Of course.
Now, on the other hand, generally speaking, women love shopping. Yes. Say what you like, eh? They love shopping. Now, it's for us as men to hurry them and rush them when they're shopping. Then we're being insensitive. You're not going to change it. Doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to change. The best you can do is to, when you know you're going for shopping, agree that you're going to do it for 2 hours, budget 4 hours. If you're a wise guy. So you'll be appreciated more because 2 hours has lapsed, but you're still there for 4 hours.
And you're calm.
You're calm and everything.
Yes.
But now we've come to an agreement with her. I can't do this shelf-to-shelf viewing of... sorry to say that.
Shelf-to-shelf
I'm
viewing.
forward in Neyman. So she knows that there is a threshold that I reach.
Okay.
I'll do the best. And when I reach the threshold, I'll just say, can I go sit down there? And she says, go sit down. So she'll do whatever and then bring the stuff. We look at it and she puts it on and we go.
You're
Well,
waiting.
I'll come and give the final verdict.
Yes.
Okay, this one, that one, that one, that one. These ones you can take back. But you have to work it out. But it took us a long time to get there, David. I don't want people to get the impression
That it
that
was
I'm in a perfect
overnight.
home. No. It came after lots of fighting. Many times we say, okay, you said you are here for an hour. Look at you, I'm late. And then I've set appointments, to rush to. Now I know, no, if we go there, I'm not setting appointments. Yeah, even if I'm saying we're going for 2 hours, I've budgeted far more than that.
Yes.
So that I'm at peace. And I've accepted that she likes shopping. And maybe if I join in, it
Maybe you like
ministers
it
to
too.
her.
Maybe you like it too.
No, I don't like it. As 30-something years married, I still don't like shopping.
Amazing.
I don't like it.
Your history with Christianity started differently. It started with the Dutch Reformed Church.
Yes.
Give me a brief background with that. Is that a religion you found from home, so to speak? The church that you found from home?
My father, when we were at Western Native Township, he used to attend the Apostolic Faith Mission.
Okay.
He actually received Christ as Savior and Lord way back in the 50s, I think. And then through forced removals, when we went to Morocco, there was no Apostolic Faith Mission church nearby, but one in Dlamini, which they had to walk. I mean, there were no taxis, no buses. At the time, we are a family of 5. My dad, my mom, my 2 elder sisters, and myself. And traveling with kids, it's like you're taking the whole house with you. So my dad, in his explanation years later, said, we went to church until we couldn't do it anymore because of the young kids. So I gave up going to church and I ended up staying at home because I felt like I'm a hypocrite.
Okay.
Going there to preach to other people's families when my family wasn't with me. That's what he explains. Nevertheless, one day on a Sunday, my mom sent my sister and I to go and buy jelly from one of the shops down the road. And it just so happened on our way to that shop, there's a church on the path in Morocco, So coming back from that shop, this church was starting and they had a teacher, a Sunday school teacher who was recruiting children to come in for Sunday school.
Okay.
And that teacher called us. Now, I don't have a recollection of that. I was 6 years old. Yeah. And my younger sister was about 4 years old. So being children, we went into the Sunday school. We attended the Sunday school class. And then, children, then we went home afterwards for the jelly. My parents tell us that we kept going back to that church, my sister and I, only the 2 of us, for 2 solid years.
Wow.
Yeah. If I may...
Were they aware that
They were aware.
On a Sunday you go to church?
They were aware. Yeah. Do you know what I learned from that, if I can divert a bit? I learned the power of children's ministry.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I learned that.
Explain further?
Children bring adults to church because what happened was our parents followed us to church. And if children find a good Sunday school, children's church, whatever you call it, they come back. Children are the most faithful people ever. They're not like adults.
Do you know there's a marketing concept called Pastor Power where you sell products to children knowing very well that they will never buy it because they don't have money.
Yes.
However, they will pester their parents to buy it.
Oh, yeah. People don't know that about church.
Yeah.
So when they have church, they don't have a good children's service. It's an afterthought. They are children's service. You got to have the best children's service that when these children think about it on Sunday, they don't give their parents rest. That's why I learned that. Anyhow, let me come back to my story. Then
that's a great strategy.
But that's why I learned that. That's why I learned that. Then my parents followed us to church.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I attended the Dutch Reformed Church since I was 6 years old, and that's where really it all started. And then when I was 9 years old, 11 years old, something very incredible happened. Our Sunday school started having problems over the years with teachers who we had 3 kinds of teachers. We had the unreliable one. They come and teach. They disappear for weeks. We come to Sunday school, there's no teacher. Secondly, you had the capable ones. Yeah. They come there, we really enjoy them, but they're undisciplined. So for 2 months they're there, next thing they disappear. Hey. And then you had the third group, they're very loyal, but they have no chemistry with children.
Something is missing.
Something's missing. Yes. They're talking to us and we're sitting there as kids thinking, what are they talking about? So at this time, we had been going to Sunday school, I think, for about 5 months without a single teacher coming. I'm around 11 years old. And this thing bothers me, David. It bothers me because the attendance has dwindled. I think there's about 3 of us children or so. And just out of nowhere, I stand up and I start teaching the children, being a children myself.
Were you
11 years
exposed
old.
enough to the content?
I don't know. I think I had enough because I've always been one who reads a lot. And thankfully, my father being a school teacher, he would help us along certain lines. But I was very interested. I don't know, from the age of 9, I started growing a lot of interest in church work.
Yes.
It was just interest, really, to be honest, even when I did it 11 years. But then I enrolled in to be a Sunday school teacher.
Okay.
I wrote a course and qualified. I started buying books and all of that. So I had a lot of content.
And this is young.
11 years, yeah.
Yes.
I started diversifying the program. Not only did I teach, I had other activities like music, skits.
Wow.
Yeah, we would do games. And I figured out how to get the children to come back. We would play games, There's one of the games where you draw a line on the ground and you say river bank. I don't know if you know.
I know that
Yeah,
game, yes.
then it's a game. So you say river bank. They say river, you say river, and then they jump on the other side. And I'll play those games. And the children's church grew.
What?
David, kids came. Hey. And I will fast forward. In our church, if you had a children's church of 20 children, that was big. Yes. That was mega children's church. When I was leading children's church, I had a children's church of 150 kids.
What?
Yeah. I led this for 11 years, from 11 years till I was 22 years old.
That's crazy.
Crazy. And here's the other crazy part. We had children ranging from 4 years old to 15, 16 years old, all in the same class, taught by one person. yeah.
So that means you had to make your teachings work for all ages.
All that. I tried to get other people to come and teach and help me. They wouldn't last.
Yeah.
Then I started taking the children to camps. We started having skits. During Christmas time, we did the Jesus story.
The birth of Jesus.
We then would have music. It was rocking. I tell you, it was just amazing.
Yes.
And I think that is where God got my heart. That's where but I must be honest. There wasn't any big spiritual thing. I just did it out of concern that, we're not having
a teacher.
If
they had a teacher, you would probably still be teaching gospel now.
Yeah. However, God used that
to
plant the seed Yaburuti in me. I didn't know, because when I was my pastor, the late Muruti Ntwane, who was our pastor, when I had led the children's church for a few months, he got me to come to the main service. To address the main service and ask the parents to bring the kids. I'm telling you, I'm 11 years old.
What?
My heart was beating in my mouth, Baba. I tell you, I was scared. I don't know what I said. But whatever I said worked. Because the next Sunday, the children came. Now remember the analogy I gave? Children come, they bring parents. Our church grew. It was chock-a-block. The parents were coming.
That's incredible.
I'm being honest with you. And to tell you the truth, David, I didn't see it in that light until years later when I reflected on it and got feedback from people who were watching it. And I didn't see. That's what it was. I was just doing it. Going to
get the kids.
150 kids, why not? And so on. Yeah. So there's a lot of kids who even now when they meet me, they remind me. Funny enough, I used to lead kids who were like 5 years older than me, 6 years older than me. Yeah. Even today, they stop me. They say, you were my teacher. I always knew you will be a pastor.
What is Youth Alive? What is this program?
When I received Christ in 1978, I started attending Youth Alive. Youth Alive is it's a youth ministry which is interdenominational. In other words, it's just, those years, there were ministries that focused on young people and leading young people to Christ. You had a number of them: Scripture Union, Youth with a Mission, Youth for Christ, youth ministries. So they'd go to schools and do assembly, Student Christian Movement, SAM.
Okay.
Youth Alive, they would run Bible studies during the week. And on the weekends, they would have services in the afternoon, especially targeted for young people. So we'd go to church. In the afternoon at 3 o'clock, we go to Youth Alive. Youth Alive at the time was led by Bishop Caesar Mulebatsi,
Okay.
the late Mandla Adonis, the late Diamond Atong, Jerry Mufokeng wa Makgetha, and many other people who were just incredible leaders. So would go there as young people, and their youth program was diversified. You know, the main focus was about a young person living for Christ, right? But also they were very strong on youth development. They got us, the young people, to participate in the program.
Okay,
So we were not passively going there.
You're not an audience. Yeah.
So there would be times when we would preach
Whoa.
as the young people. So you come up with a theme, and then each one, for instance, there's a theme, we used to love it. We used to call it watch.
Okay.
Watch. The theme is watch. And then every letter there, we use it as an acronym, like watch your words,
Okay.
watch your actions,
Gotcha.
teeth, watch your tongue. And then every young person has to deal with each alphabet. Yeah. So you have to
In
go
their
and
own
prepare.
way.
In their own way. So they allocate about 10 minutes for you to come and speak.
Yes.
And I tell you, that's one of the best things that ever happened to us.
Wow.
And then you also would also have teams where after the main teaching in the plenary session where we are all together, we break into teams to discuss the subject matter, to go into detail. So there has to be someone who facilitates the discussion. There would be questions to ask, contributions to make, all kinds of things. At Youth Alive, we would do sketches, we would sing. I used to be in a singing group.
You don't have much of a singing voice.
Yes, I don't. It got lost in the process.
If you say got lost, it means you had it at some point.
Well, let's put it this way. Maybe the other people used to tolerate my voice. I don't know. But I used to sing and play a guitar.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. We had a group. And for your information, David, they loved it. If it was on the charts, we probably were top 5, not even top 10.
Maybe they loved you.
I don't know.
You know the people who love you,
I don't know.
they accept everything you give them.
And then we would go to camps.
Yes.
Where in December time, we go to camps. In the camps, the program is so diverse. There's sports, there's arts, there's all kinds of things, but mostly it's centered around teaching and so on. Then I became one of the leaders. They would call you a sponsor or a president.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of a branch, but I would be under a senior.
Okay.
And I'm the president, and I have to make sure the whole branch is running. And then they would take us in for training. Like right now in January, we would have gone to camp a week before the schools reopen.
Okay.
A special training program. So there's lots of things I can talk about. But I tell you, Youth Alive for me was one of the best training platforms for me as a young person. That's what sensitized me to the need for ministry targeted to the young people.
Do you feel enough of it is done?
No. I don't think as churches we do as we should. I don't think we also do it in a youth-friendly way. Yeah, you have to package it in a way youth can interact with it. I don't think we do it as we should. And the other thing, David, I can tell you, when you go through that as a young person, there's so much positivity deposited into you. First of all, being a Christian, I grew in my Christian experience. I grew in my knowledge of God. But then also good values, leadership principles, learning to work with a team, failing, exploring your giftings. Can you sing? Even if you say, I'm not much of a singer, I'm offended about that. I'm going to have to send you to an inquiry. Anyhow, singing, poetry, because we had young people who come and do poetry and all kinds of things. So remember, when I received Christ, I was 17 years old. This is on the 5th of August, 1978. Amazing. So you have all this input in you as a teenager. I don't think we've understood the criticalness of investing in our children, teenagers, and young people, because for me, that's one of they are ready at that time. Maybe they may not go that way fully, but there's so much invested in them. You see it popping up when they come into their 20s, their 30s. So I credit a lot of what I do today, like as I've told you. My whole approach to doing church is very much influenced by what I saw at Youth Alive.
You're saying that there's a that sweet spot, that
Yes.
age.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
catch them now.
It's a psychologists call it the impressionable age. Things that happen to you in your teens,
Yeah.
they shape you.
Loro lo kojwa le sale metsi.
Hey.
Yes.
But also the good thing is not only about moral living, but about exploring your potential, provoking you to think in certain ways and exploring certain giftings about you. If you look in many other places, if you want to make a champion, right, you take that little child to go and watch Ronaldo when he's 5 years old. Right? Because what they see there at that age makes such an impression in them that when they leave, they're trying to live up to that. So we have to expose ourselves. And this is, maybe if I can digress a bit, David, the pain I feel. You know, we went on a cleaning campaign at several schools in Soweto. I tell you, when I saw the dilapidation in those classrooms, David, Baba, I'm telling you, I was heartbroken.
And this is now.
This year, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, you bring a child to this type of environment, you know the impression it creates on them? I don't think we've understood how environment can influence a person to lift up their standard. There's a minister I love called E.A. Bernard. He is in Brooklyn, in the U.S. Incredible man. He is very academic. He's like Malcolm X type guy. Yeah, he's a critical thinker. And one of the times we're discussing this concept of how do we help people in our environments, in you know, because he's really in the hood, you know. And he explained a concept I'll never forget. He said, if you watch people, when you bring them into a beautiful environment, they up their standards unconsciously. just by being in that environment, because human beings have the capacity to lift themselves up to a higher level.
Absolutely.
Just like that. So he told us exactly that they've got lots of barber shops, hair salons there.
Yes.
And he teaches his people, that when you have this, if you have a business, have high standards. And there's this guy who, in his salon, he decided, I'm going to wear a shirt, an apron, I'm going to wear beautiful pants. I'm not going to have guys battle ploma mode. Because they go kasi, yeah. I'm also not going to be playing terrible music. I'm going to play jazz.
Wow.
And I'm going to keep the place spotlessly clean. And the people are going to come by appointment. You know? I mean, this is not what's done. No.
We just walk in.
No.
And there's hair everywhere.
And there was this lady who had this unruly child. This child was known everywhere. This boy, when he comes into a place, he wrecks it.
Oh, no.
And this woman comes to come do her hair. And this boy comes in, looks around, and sits still for the first time in his life.
Yeah.
And this boy doesn't wreck the place up. He doesn't do anything. And it happens more than once. Yeah. And he used to explain that. And that's where, for me, I tell people, whether it's a church, it's a school, it's an organization, wherever we are, David, in our communities, please, let's raise the bar.
Yes.
Let's lift up the standard of the environment we create. Not only in terms of our facilities, but in terms of our work ethic, in terms of the values we embrace. I'm not talking about being sinless no. I'm just talking about play at a high standard. Now, because these standards are not normal, you will experience resistance.
Of course.
When we built the church at Pimville, we told people no graffiti on the walls. We don't want guys standing up Ashaya 6'9", toilet,
Yes.
all of that. I can tell you, David, people have maintained our building just spotless. Amazing. We tell them, don't throw stuff on the ground. We mow the lawn. When you walk, scale double up.
You're making
it's a double up,
yes,
you know.
Yes.
And when we started, there was resistance over time because we insisted on it. But what it has done, some of them come back to thank me, because now they are running companies. They've imbibed those values. In our church, the Ministry of Health, people must come on time. I'm sorry today I was late. I wasn't an example of what I'm teaching.
Don't worry. We understood.
Okay.
I'll tell you why we understood. I got calls to say he's on his way.
Yes,
he's just running.
yeah. I was panicking.
Don't you worry about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we teach people like when you serve in the church.
And by the way, your team was an hour early, so
I know.
anyway, that's fine.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. So we teach people, your dress code.
Yeah.
How you do. So you if you have people leading in the church, train them specifically. If they're ushering, when in our ushering syllabus, we got people who are cabin attendants.
What?
Yes. To come and
way.
teach us. I'm telling you.
So they do it right.
Yeah. Look, David, put the standard up there. Listen, people can go to any standard. I've proved it. People can go. Now imagine when you are 15 years old, David. You are 17 years old. You are taught to be on time, to have excellence, to have good morals. Do you know what happens to you when you're in your 20s, in your 30s, when you become the CEO of a company? You take that with you.
That's true.
And this is where sometimes when I argue with politicians, they say, Isonto, how is it changing society? Well, you guys, you're talking about us serving soup at the corner. Nina nukoluma ngama soup kitchen. You're not talking about impacting the lives of people. Because I can tell you, we've been there 42 years. I can show you people who, when they came, they were in one state. Today you look at them, they are so different because of what they learned at church. And they will tell you that. And they are leading somewhere, making a difference. Young men who came angry, came from a broken home, wanted to kill women. Today they have a family, they're a good father. And so then I tell them, okay, maybe don't work a soup kitchen. You want to talk about the role of the church? The church is one of the most powerful agents of change. And this is why when I talk to people in my sector, I say, guys, let's not play with that platform. Please. It's a platform to engineer societal change. If we do it right, guys, it may not happen tomorrow, right? But over time, these 15-year-olds, it's just a matter of another 10 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
They're active members
they'll
of
be
society.
the people. Yeah,
Yes.
and because they're 15, they're still pliable. They're not stubborn like the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds. Teach them the right things, and see. And I think for me, we don't realize how we can create these environments that can change people. It concerns me a lot.
Do you know, I'm connecting elements of what we've been talking about. Earlier, you spoke about do the best you can with the little you have.
Yes.
Take that point for 1 second.
Yes.
And then we move to environment is everything.
Yes.
So that means even if you have a garden or a yard the size of this table,
Yes.
you have to look after it.
My grandmother who used to sweep.
That's it. Exactly that.
The shit, it's a twanka.
100%.
Yeah.
So because if you look after the yard the size of this table really well, it influences those not only see it,
Yes.
but experience it.
Yes.
Because they become a different people. Now, let me extend the thought and talk about amachochombe, shacks,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and
Yes.
communities such as those.
Yes.
And let me extend it further and talk
Yes.
about dumping spots that you find littered
Ex-
everywhere,
exactly,
excuse the
exactly,
pun,
exactly.
in the township. And you're saying that mess,
Yes.
and I'll use the word mess
Yeah,
very
yeah,
carefully
yeah,
because
yeah.
some of this is people's homes.
Yes.
It has a lasting impact
It does.
on your mindset and the mindset of the people whom you exist with.
And you know what it does?
Yeah.
It affects your set point. You see, a set point is your level of defining what is best. That's your set point.
That's that standard.
Yeah, it's a standard that you define things with. So what it does is you throw it here. So you normalize, you become so desensitized to grime that you normalize throwing stuff around. But you see, the problem with that is that feeds into other areas of your life. You see, that's the problem, David. Yeah. So when you look at the Bible, this is how Jesus puts it. If you are faithful in little, these are the words he uses, you'll be made ruler over much.
Yes.
If you look God's way of dealing with people, he doesn't look at you when you handle them much. He looks at you when you handle the little. And let me take it further. If you really want to know who a person is, look how they handle the little.
Wow.
And that's why everybody God has used in the Bible, they were handling little. David was a shepherd.
That's it.
No,
Yeah.
when a prophet came to anoint someone who would be a king, his father forgot about David, called everybody else, forget about this boy who's smelling, who's looking after sheep. But that was the guy that God called. Yes. Moses. Peter and them were fishermen. God never starts with big. He starts with small. Yeah. So this is what I tell people. People are so obsessed with success, money, everything. And I say, no, look, handle what you have. Do the best you can. You know what it does to you? It builds your capacity. Now, let me explain what I mean. Who you are when you're handling little is who you will be when you're handling much.
That's it.
Right?
So this character
yes.
of 20 rand,
yes,
it becomes the character of 20 million.
Exactly. And that's why you see some people, once babona chelete, they can't keep their hands out of it.
Because
once they are given things to run, they run it down.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you give him a building, come on, we're seeing everything falling apart around us in our country. Sure. That to me tells me that the people in charge don't understand this principle. And I can guarantee you, if you go back to them and see how they handled the little. For instance, you buy new shoes. This is what my parents taught us. You know, at home, you would never I don't know.
Yes.
No, you don't.
Yes.
We don't. At home, they used to buy us clothes twice a year only. Twice a year. And that's all, ne? That's all, ne? You're not getting any more.
Make it work.
And by the way, it was never designer clothes. Never. It was just your regular, ordinary clothes. Yeah. So they taught us, you don't step on your shoes at the back. Because if you do, you're messing them. So some people wear the shoes 1 week, next week, badi khatile ko morago. So you don't learn what we call frugality. Yes. You don't learn how to take care of what you've got. Now, if you have that behavior, even the day you have money, ne? Even the day you are a CEO, that same behavior is going to come in. So this is what I tell people. I say, look, let's bring these values into these children. Yeah. And let's teach them about everything. I mean, if they're late, we must make a big thing out of it. No, you can't be late. If they're underperforming on stage, get on their case. If they're misbehaving, get on their case. Now, they may not like you at that stage. But you know, as a coach, as a teacher, as a pastor, you know the quality that you're trying to bring in, because too many people play below their potential. Yeah. And give me, David, I'm telling you, it hurts me because we've allowed ourselves to play below who we are. And we've normalized it. That people argue when you try to do something better to Zenzangon. And I'm saying, so we're going to allow all these other people in the world to rule us.
I want to hold on to the environment concept, because we have let a lot of things decay.
Yes.
In our country, in our society. When you and I, we're not the same age. You're a good 10, maybe 15 years older than me.
Maybe 50.
However, we're exposed to the same circumstances of a township, and we saw small towns become bigger, better, or worse.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I travel a lot because of my DJ gigs.
Right.
I see small towns decay.
Yes.
I see small towns change from, wow, this used to be nice.
Yes.
Look at it now.
Yes.
I studied in Durban, and we used to go to the beach just to see it.
Yeah.
Because in Twana Pitori, a beach is a big deal.
Of course, yes.
Of course, and now you go to Point Road in Durban. It's a very different town.
Yeah.
It used to be beautiful.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of those. Well, Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
You used to dress up and
of course, yes.
Look nice. Exactly.
Ah.
Now you just go if you have to.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of things decay around us. And you're saying it's not just the buildings and the streets that are affected. It's the people that live in those streets.
Because you project that.
Yes.
Once it's in you. Let me give you how Jesus puts it. Yeah. Jesus says this. And, when I read this in the Bible, I thought, no, this is too harsh. He says, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out.
Yeah.
Because it's better to go to heaven with one eye than to go to hell with both eyes. And I thought, oh, Jesus, this is
You're being harsh.
This is harsh. But then I noticed what they do in medical science. when they discover that somebody has sugar diabetes and part of their limb is affected, they chop it off. Why? Because you want to stop decay before it spreads everywhere.
True.
But here's the concept. You deal with it harshly.
That chopping it off.
Because if you are not harsh with decay when it starts, once it can spread, you can't stop it.
Yes.
And that's the problem we are.
Where are we in South
We have
Africa?
allowed the culture of decay to be the norm.
Yo.
We have normalized things that should not be normalized. You see? And so now, because it has infiltrated everywhere, I mean, there was a time when we knew, even if this is wrong, that one at least yes, that one, no, but we were very careless, about the standards. We allowed Izinto, we allowed the culture of discipline to go. Even in the schooling system, they took out certain disciplines at school. We stopped certain things. Then we came with these extreme laws that protect what's wrong. Right? Yeah.
Democrats.
Yeah, well, I don't know why we did
Get
that.
human rights.
But then, I mean, if you're an employer today, it's so difficult to deal with your employees.
Yes.
Because they have been so strengthened. They can do whatever. And they can get away with it. What about the criminal system?
Oh.
So what we've done is that we lowered the bar of doing things right. We normalized certain standards. So these things have come back to bite us, and now we don't know what to do.
Sure.
And I'm being honest, David, some of us used to say a lot about these things back then. But, people think, Zenza Dona and whatever. And I say, listen, and I want to say this because in spite of all this, there are pockets of excellence and there are pockets of success in all sectors. And for me, my wish, my prayer, and my desire is for these women and men who are leading these institutions to do that more. Because if you look at the story of the children of Israel, it was about a next generation where things change. There are times when things are so out of control that your focus should be the next generation.
Sekundlulile. Is that where we are?
I think so. Personally, I think so.
Sure.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because you see, I interact with a lot of our age group, and I think there's a silent culture of saying there's nothing we can do,
Sure.
and therefore people don't attempt anything. And when you try to attempt something, then they say uzenza ngcono.
Ish.
Yeah, I think people have withdrawn to say, okay, I'm not going to worry myself about everybody else and everything else. I'll just do what I can do. As long as whatever, I couldn't care what happens. I think we're at a very difficult stage right now. It's very painful.
What stops us? What is it about our psyche right now as people who live in this space collectively? I always, in my head, and it's something I don't express often, it's like a dormitory.
Yeah.
It's like where we live in one little house called South Africa. And you see it decay because you live in it. You see decay there, you see trouble there. And you don't see yourself as part of the solution.
Yes, it's a sad thing.
What happens to us? Is it historic? What has happened to us?
It's a human problem.
Yeah.
If you study history and when you study the Bible, you'll find that it's not many people who have the heart to be builders.
Yeah.
I always use the story of Nehemiah. You see, when the place was in total chaos, there had to be someone who rises up. And if you look at the tone he adopted in getting people to get into building mode, because once the morale of the people has broken, right? Yeah, no. Once the morale of the people is broken, that's it. That's it. And that is why you find it so problematic that people just subscribe to mediocrity. I mean, we celebrate mediocrity here. Yeah, we celebrate because it's very difficult to envision people with a different level of doing things. It's very difficult because you deal with what I call resistant forces.
Yeah.
The first resistant force is in their mindset. That's the first resistant force. The second resistant force is in them buying into what you're saying. The third resistant force is that, remember, even if you are starting something good, you're going to meet many obstacles.
Of course.
Many. So the ability to have staying power, I call it, to stick to the mission. Because to convince people to bring change, you have to be so insistent on doing what you're doing until change becomes possible.
So you have to be as the force of change.
You have to.
You have to be resilient and never
Unrelenting.
Yo.
And even if you are the last man, the last woman standing. And sometimes, by the way, it may never be realized in your lifetime.
We've seen that often.
Somebody after you will catch that message and make it possible.
O.R. Tambo never experienced democracy.
Exactly. So the spirit of being a builder is a very rare commodity. And it's not just a South African problem. Everywhere in the world. And I think that is why God raises people with vision. You know, vision, one of my friends, he says, your frustration, your vision.
What keeps you up at night? What troubles you? Let me focus the question too about us as a nation, about us as South Africa.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you say, man?
We are living below our potential. That frustrates me.
Sure.
We are the best country in the world, the most diverse, the most loving people. We've got resources. We've got capable, gifted people. We have a large community of young people, you know. But my goodness, we have settled for mediocrity. Hey, that bothers me. No.
Do you find that it affects a lot of things?
Oh, it does. Because we keep lowering the standards. We keep celebrating average. We don't push the boundaries. We don't push ourselves to be the best. And the sad part for me is that it is possible, by the way. We have it in us. You have it in us. We've got South African people who are... I look at our music. We're excelling in the world.
We're great.
Look at our arts. We're incredible. Look at the doctors, the nurses produced here, the scientists produced here. We're just an amazing people.
That's true.
But it's like we're not aware. We're not aware. And we've settled for being just regular and average. That bothers me. It keeps me up. Give
me a sense of how our inability to recognize our talents, our greatness. Give me a sense of really at the heart of it. What is the long-term implication of this inability?
Well, we are going to see things going down. We are going to birth societies that are average. And for those who are playing at high levels, they're going to leave us and desert us and go and stick with others. Because at a point, you become tired of telling people something they won't believe, they won't accept. And when you try to do something, they criticize you. There's a point where people have a threshold.
You just walk away.
And all we have to do is to travel the world and see how countries have degenerated.
Sure.
And watch the pattern where it started. And I think what I've never understood is that we are surrounded with so much historical evidence all around us. Why can't we draw lessons from some of these countries? And why can't we do the taking out of your eye approach? When we see these things coming in, and I use the word harshly figuratively, but let's be very decisive in preventative measures before a culture takes root.
Yes.
Because once certain things take root, like I was telling you, at our church, we tell people not to litter. Not to litter. We tell them. So if you see you littering, we talk to you, right? Why? Because if we can allow it and tolerate it, the day it's entrenched in people, to change it, icona. So I think that's our indecisiveness and our tiptoeing around things in the name of wanting to be liked is working against us. Because anywhere in the world, when you look at high achievers, they have certain standards. They have certain non-negotiables. I watch people, I say, I travel a lot around. You go to the East and you see the work ethic of people there. I was in Singapore. When they say they're coming to pick you up, right, They are there 30 minutes before.
Yes.
At 15 minutes before, they call your room to say, I'm already here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you arrive on the dot, it's like you are late. You have to be there 5:02. That's the...
You look late.
You look late,
Yes.
even if you're on
5
time.
minutes, yes.
Yes. If they send an email, they expect an answer. When I check and look around the world as to people who are successful, what are the disciplines they have embraced? Oh, I tell you, we fall short of those things.
Yes.
We fall short of those things.
I want to go back slightly to your younger days, the transition from just an ordinary folk to being a pastor. Clearly, there must have been a moment where you were saying, this is the route now. At what stage was that? Was it after being a teacher, or was it before being a teacher, where you now realize that this thing is calling me so strongly I cannot stop it?
I'd been teaching since 11.
Yes.
So when I became a Christian at 17, but when I was 18 years old, I got filled with the Holy Spirit. And it was on a Wednesday.
Jeez, you remember the day?
I'll give you the date even.
What?
4th of July, 1979.
No way.
Yeah, I never want to forget that date. I write them down, and I celebrate every year when that date comes.
Wow.
Because when I look at my life, I'm thankful. It's by God's grace. Then the Sunday leading to that, which was the 8th of July, 1979, I'm sitting in church. I've just finished teaching Sunday school. I'm waiting for the main service. I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's like something's going to happen, but what, I don't know.
Yes. Did you feel a positive or?
Very positive.
Yes.
Very positive. Now, by then, 1979, I'm doing my final matric.
Okay.
I want to be a school teacher. That's all I wanted because that's what my dad was
Okay.
all my life, from being young. Somehow on these days, I'm sitting there with that discomfort. I start seeing a vision in front of my eyes. Something just comes up. I see myself standing on the pulpit preaching. So I rub my eyes, and I can still see myself preaching. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And this discomfort drives me to go and pray outside.
Okay.
I go outside, I pray. And when I pray, it's that kind of prayer, that kind of pours out of you. I don't know how to explain it. It's just so spontaneous, so strong, so passionate, very unintended. I didn't think I was going to pray with so much passion, but my goodness, I did. This experience happens 3 times.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there, I'm seeing, I go outside, I pray. 3rd time when I come back into the service. Now, our church, when you entered the church building, there was a wall that screened you from seeing the pulpit.
Okay.
If you go to the left of the wall, the chairs on the left is where the women sit.
There was a time when
Yeah,
there was
in the
separation.
middle
Yes.
is the young people and the MBBs. To the right is us, the men, and the children at the back. So I go to the right because now I'm older, and then I go sit in front. As I'm walking to the front, I hear an audible voice, David. Big, booming voice.
Yeah.
It calls my name.
Ooh.
But this voice, the words, when they enter my ears, they get into my heart. They start doing something, changing me. I turn to look who is calling me. And the voice continues. These are the sheep that I want you to pastor. At that time, there's some young people who are entering. These are the sheep that I'm calling you to pastor. So I turn, I look at that, and I'm looking everywhere, and it continues speaking. I'm calling you into ministry. I'm calling you to work for me. I can't explain to you what happened in my heart fully. One, I got so filled with the knowledge that I'm going to be a pastor.
Sure.
Secondly, I got baptized in love for people beyond my words. And it was like these words are literally changing, turning my life around. And I became so emotional because now I don't know what's going on. I'm 18 years old, by the way. I go and sit down. Service goes on. I can't concentrate. I'm crying right through the service. because I don't know what's going on. After the service, I go to my priest and I ask him, when you went into ministry, how did it happen? How did God call you into the ministry? And he answers me, but I can't get what he's saying. So I'm weeping. And I go home and I tell my parents, I'm 18 years old. And thank God my parents heard me. And the following year I went to Bible school.
Not teachers' college.
No.
Wow.
I was 19 years old when I went to Bible school. Let me be honest. Being a pastor was never a choice I made. It was never in my plans. It was never in my vision. I didn't choose it. It chose me. Yeah.
Didn't you feel at any point in your early days burdened by this calling that was never in your plans, was never in your a goal? Didn't it feel, this is not where I'm going? Or was the route relatively easy?
Well, David, to date, it still burdens me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And not so much that I don't want to do it, but the size of it scares me. I think about it every day. I'm going to stand before God and give an account one day. Will I really receive the words, well done, good and faithful servant? For me, it's not a career. No, it's never been a career. When I started pastoring, the first 3 years, I never was paid. Not a cent.
Wow.
Never. Even when I got paid, it was very little. Thank God I was single, so I didn't have a family to look after. I stayed with my parents, but it's never been about money for me, to tell you the truth. Now, I'm not saying I shouldn't be properly taken care of, and I'm thankful that they're doing their best. But for me, it's a burden. You talk about being awake at night. Sorry. I lie awake at night, David. I think about the country. I think about people who are far from God. I see families struggle. I see people who are poor. I see how we, the church, sometimes don't become that extension of God's love and because you see, the church should be about extending God's love. It can't be about anything else, and that's why it bothers some of us when you see some of the things done. Now, I understand other things are fine, but this thing is a calling. So talk about burden. I'm burdened every day, David. Every day I stand up to go and preach. I feel it. Every time I stand in Good Grace Bible Church, my knees are shaking.
Jeez.
Because to me, it's a responsibility that I feel the weight of it. And that our church has grown by God's grace. And that one never set out to try and be a large church, mega church, many branches. Never this one. I think from day one just tried to do the best I could and just be faithful to the group. But then things grow and it becomes large, and
you can't say don't come.
but then it tells me the weight of responsibility. To me, it's not just about the numbers. It's about if you blow it in four, so many lives are at stake. And I'm not saying I'm God. I'm not God. But if what God's done in one's life, and if the preaching of God's word so influences people's lives that you see young people changing, families being reconciled, people finding hope, the church being like a home, And I think if I was to disappoint these people, what am I going to say to God?
It's the second time you and I speak about this particular subject where even when people give you accolades, as good as they are to receive, they reflect on the burden.
They do.
They remind you of of this problem that you're holding in your hands.
And the difficulty is the assignment keeps getting bigger. I think that's what's hard.
You're a bus driver, and the bus is getting bigger and bigger.
Well, for me, as I said, now for me is to help other young people in the same area to become what God wants them to be.
Yeah.
Because I was young, my path and theirs might not be the same. But I've struggled with a lot of things as a young person. I know the voices that are dissenting voices out there. The challenges of having to marry as a young person, run a home, take care of your children, and balance things out. When a ministry is not working, having to work for hours and never see the fruit of it. The criticism you take. The very communities that we are trying to lift up when they become unkind to you. And still love them anyhow. Just the discipline to stand on the pulpit, preach love when they give you hate, Yeah.
How do you even manage to pull that off? Because it's easy to choose the comfortable, easy way out and say, why am I doing this?
Look, that is why I say I went through that extensive narrative of it chose me. I didn't choose it. I was called for it. Because if God calls you for it, He will give you the ability to deal with whatever it gives to you.
Yeah.
I think the way to love people, natural love can do it. When people treat you this way, I've come to realize it has to be a love that God puts in your heart. Otherwise, it's hard to do it.
The beginning of Grace Bible Church, take me back to just before it began. Yeah. Where did you minister? Where did you... Because when I read up on your story, there's a Rhema Bible Church that comes into it.
Yes.
Which is very, 2 minutes away from where we are right now, by the way.
Yes.
Take me back to that time. How did you end up in that space, your Rhema Bible Church?
After I received the call into ministry, 1979, 1980, I went to Bible school.
Okay.
It was an Apostolic Faith Mission Bible school, where Dr. Frank Chikane comes from.
There we go.
And I'll cut out many other details just to get to the main point. Unfortunately, the Apostolic Faith Mission at that time, not now, and I want to be very clear about that, they were experiencing lots of problems. A lot of issues around racial divides. Dr. Frank Chikane was banned because of his political activism. There were lots of problems. So when I came to that Bible school, being a guy from Gosoweto, I think the socio-political environment that was there, I felt I can't cope. And not only that, they had 2 Bible colleges, one for whites, one for blacks.
Like everything else in the country.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
The one for blacks, the resources were terrible. I tell you. The one for whites, so one day we visited this other Bible school, Yamakoa. When I saw what the whites had, it stirred up the 1976 rioting spirit in me. So I decided, look, I don't think here they take us seriously as black people. They are not training. Even our Bible school, in terms of the facilities we had and the staff we have, the people who were in the faculty, they were not highly qualified people.
Oh, no.
Here they had professors and doctors of ministry. Here they just hoid anybody at us.
Sure.
Yeah, so I said, no, I'm going away.
So they're giving a Hong Kong Jesus.
By far.
Yeah, like a
let's put it this way, Hong
arrangement.
Kong training.
That's it.
Because
yes.
they're training us to be pastors.
But yet...
It was terrible. It was terrible. Coincidentally, that same year, we bought a book written by a guy by the name of Charles Capps, which book really changed our lives. But then we heard about Rhema, and in their brochure, they mentioned that Charles Capps was one of the lecturers as well. It was just an interesting coincidence. So we applied to go to Rhema, but not Rhema in Johannesburg, Rhema in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, not even...
No, not even here.
You needed passports.
Yeah. My friend was accepted. I was declined. Anyhow, yeah. But somehow we got to hear that there's a Rhema here locally. And that's when we applied to go to Rhema. At the time, Rhema was still having its Bible school in downtown Johannesburg. Do you know that?
I didn't even know that's
Yeah.
where it started.
No, they were still in downtown Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And in a short while, they moved to the other building they had where it was the old Tony Factors. This is a building that's not far from the Randburg courts.
Got you.
Yeah. So they moved there. In that same year when we were attending school, I was looking for a job. And I got a job somehow at Rhema. I think it was through someone who used to sit next to me who was white, who spoke to, I don't know.
Well, it's not so bad.
Yeah. So I started working at Rhema then, 1981, because it was 1981. And
What type of job is that?
I was working in the mailing room, and that's a big word. Let me tell you what I used to do. I used to handle the entire mail of Rhema. Now, you must remember, Rhema at the time, right, was the single connecting point to the entire continent, just about, of the word of faith material or the charismatic movement. All the preachers, their material, their books, their cassette tapes then, their videos. Rhema was the sole distributor of them.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the services they had, which were called the Faith Convention, that's where all these preachers would come to. I mean, it was the place to be. So they had this huge wholesale department
Yes.
with all these books that would have to be distributed literally around the continent, even to Australia, by the way.
Wow.
So I worked as the one who would receive the orders and send them by post when post was working. So you have to package them. So it was a lot of work. Oh, I did that. And then I had to also make sure the bookshop at Rhema, the shelves are stocked up and the books are priced. Then they also had the video department. That was the distributor of videos.
VHS.
Yeah. And there was another one. It was VHS and another one.
Beta.
Beta, yeah.
Smaller one. Yes.
I'd have to package those and send them because they had a rent-a-video club.
Oh.
Yeah. Then they also had a magazine. They had a monthly special where they would they would couple one of Pastor Ray's messages with Kenneth Hagin's books. So those were special orders.
Wow.
But not only that, we were running a wholesale department where people would come and buy from us. We would have to do that. And then not only that, right? I also had to go to the post box to get the mail
Okay.
and then bring and distribute it everywhere. And everybody in the work who wanted to send anything, they'd send it to me. I had a franking machine. Do you know a franking machine?
What is that?
At least I said something you don't know.
I don't at all.
A franking machine is a machine where you are able to print a postage stamp.
Okay.
So how they do it is they load money on this machine, and then you have to put a postage stamp. Now, for something to have a postage stamp of a certain amount, it goes according to the weight.
Okay.
So I'd have to weigh the item. It prints out the amount, put it in the franking machine, and then I put a stamp. It's so much.
Got you.
So you don't have to buy stamps.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
You
So-
get those lines.
Yeah.
Those stamping lines.
Yes. And then the other thing, then they used to bring items to me to package that had nothing to do with the books or anything. One of them was they used to give their guest speakers Persian carpets, beautiful Persian. They were almost the size of this table, slightly bigger.
Yeah.
And something of this size doesn't have a box. There's no box.
No.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to package it.
And I would do one of the best boxes you ever saw.
Jeez.
Now, I didn't know that when they presented these gifts to the guest speakers on a Wednesday service, which I couldn't attend because I was at Bible school, the audience, the congregation would gasp because they didn't want them to cut the beautiful box. I didn't know that.
What?
I'm telling you, I didn't know that. People told me that. To an extent that Pastor Lindy McCauley came to my office to find out if I'm the one who had made that box or who makes those boxes. I said, yeah, it's me. She said, wow, they're beautiful. And she told Pastor Ray about that. Yeah. Coincidentally, it so happened that they as Rhema, They had started a Rema church in Soweto
Okay.
in 1980,
Yeah.
which was run by an Afrikaner young man by the name of Andre Knutsie.
Aha.
But
That's
because-
the name I got.
Aha!
Yes.
And because it's growing, and he's Afrikaner, he used to live here in Hillbrow, and he's newly married. He couldn't cope with the culture of Soweto, so they needed someone to become his assistant.
Got you.
So in 1982, they offer me the opportunity to say, look, we have a church in Soweto. It's a Rema church. We are looking for an associate pastor. Can you go and work? We'll still give you the same amount of money that we're paying you here. Oh, there was nothing to lose.
Stop from being a postman.
Stop from running the mailing room.
Yes.
You know, do you know when I left that job, they hired 4 people in my place?
Whoa.
Yeah.
You were committed, Kaida.
Unbelievable.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I then they said, recommend someone who can come with you. I recommended my late friend, Jerry Chela. When we came to this church, there were 15 people who were at Bible school. But there was a struggle in keeping the church clean, in the set-up procedures, because we had to set up the church, the chairs, because we're using a community center, so they have to set up the chairs on a Saturday. We have to clean the place.
And leave it the way you found it.
There were lots. Oh, no,
Which
no.
one
we
is it?
always found it dirty. It was called Kanaking
Is it?
Mavis Hall.
It's still there,
It's
obviously.
still there, yeah.
Yes.
It's a very small place. So then, out of just wanting to help, I'm an associate pastor. I made a commitment to clean.
Yeah.
So Saturday I'd come there, I'd clean the place, set up the chairs. I was helped by another pastor by the name of Kobisa Dwaba. And then the service used to start at 10 o'clock on Sunday. I'd arrive there at 8 o'clock in the morning to set up the sound system, tune my guitar.
Listen.
I'd go into a room next door to go and lead prayer and pray for the service. On the dot at 10 o'clock, I'd start with the singing. My pastor would come, he would preach, I would interpret. And then he put me in the board. I became a board member. We led cell groups. We would do follow-up and yonking.
Whoa.
And then 1983, he decided to leave to go and pursue something different.
This is moving quickly.
Yeah.
It's
It's Operation Sheshis.
Yes.
Yeah. So he then spoke to Pastor Ray, telling him that he's going to leave. And Pastor Ray says, okay, let Mosa be the leader of that church. Actually, I have letters to that effect, even today, signed by Pastor Ray. Wow. I've kept them. Yeah. and then I became the pastor of that church, 4th of September, 1983.
Does that day mean that much to you?
That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
We used the venue, but then we lost that venue on the 3rd, that we could only use it for 2 Sundays in a row. 3rd Sunday, we had to find an alternative place.
What was the reason?
I found out later is that this one of the people who was very influential was expecting to be the pastor of that church.
Oh, no.
When they didn't choose them because they had influence, they stopped everything. I only found out years later.
Jeez.
But I was aware that they were not happy. The sad part is that when we left that place, let me backtrack. The letter of the termination letter was delivered to Rema,
Head
not
office.
to me.
The
Imagine-
termination of the lease.
of the building. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of the lease. Yeah. It wasn't brought to me. I'm the pastor of the new church, but it's delivered at Rema. But somehow, God doesn't work in ways that are interesting. That particular day, I just happened to be at Rema. And as I was leaving, Pastor Ray's younger brother, Ellen McCauley, comes running and says, hey, there's a letter for you, the letter that came here, which is meant for you. So here I am, I'm running for a bus to come back to Soweto. I'd gone to buy some material. I opened this letter. It's on a Thursday. Yeah. And the letter said, as of this coming Sunday, pointing to the Sunday, we want you to know it's your last Sunday. It's a Thursday. It means I have to go look for another venue on Friday. So that Sunday when I go to the church, I announce to people, where are we going the following Sunday?
You didn't have a place to go to.
No.
Jeez.
As I'm
So
sitting
what are you
reading-
telling them?
As I'm sitting reading the letter in the bus, the Holy Spirit says to me, go to your school principal at Isaacson Higher Primary School.
Wow.
Following day, first thing in the morning, Friday morning, I go to my principal, the late Mr. Noche. Go to him and I say, Principal, please, we're looking for a place. By the way, I used to be a student there. He knows me when I was in primary school. Now I guess a pastor, you know.
King, that famous Morris Isaacson.
No. This is
There's a different.
this is an Isaacson at Rockville.
Okay.
There's Morris Isaacson. This one is
Yes.
Isaacson.
Got you.
Yeah, this one is in Morocco.
Yeah.
Principal says, Mr. Noche, oh man, Sono man, you should have come here a month earlier, man, because there's the committee, and then he stops in the middle of a sentence and he goes, no, but I think we can make this work. You know, I watched God arrest somebody
Yeah.
and make him change his mind. Yeah. And he said, by the way, it's okay, there's a church Eyuzang, the place here, but they only start their services at 12 o'clock. When can you start your services now? At our former place at Mavis Hall, we used to start the service at 10.
Okay.
Then I thought if we start at 10, 12 will be too tight. Then I said 9 o'clock. That's how 9 o'clock came at our church. He said, no, in that case, it's okay. That's how we started at Isaacson Higher Primary School.
Wow.
But here's the tragedy. I announced at the church that next week Sunday we're going there. At that time, I'm leading the church. I think we're having like 120 people, just about. Come next Sunday, when we have moved, we only had 35 people.
Jeez.
All the people who used to study at Rema left with immediate effect. Some of the most influential people left. Some people who led departments left. Some left even with the money.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was an outright sabotage.
It collapsed.
Total. And here I am. When we came to Isaacson Higher Primary School, I noticed as I stood there, I'm the only one in this entire crowd who knows how church should be run. Everybody's a lay person. Majority were young people.
Yeah.
Young people and children. We only had a few adults. Thank God my parents had joined as well.
Hey, your family to back you.
They were the only two at the time. And some other people, but it was bad.
So almost like starting from scratch.
Totally.
When you had gotten,
Totally.
you found the shop running,
Yeah.
and now you had to start it again.
And by the way, when I inherited it, I only inherited the items like the prayer cloths, the sound system, the guitars. All the accounts were taken. There was no money, not a cent. Yeah.
Ever thought at that time to go engage the people who were running this church a week or 2 weeks prior?
The atmosphere was too toxic.
Yeah.
They were very unhappy with me. And it was through no fault of my own. I mean, I hadn't done anything. They didn't like me. Yeah, they were very, very antagonistic. And what made it difficult was there were elderly people among them and very powerful people among them. And I just thought, look, I don't think it will help. I just, let me take what it comes, manage my losses. Let's just start with these people. And we had one of the most amazing services, David.
That 35
Confused
people.
as I was, broken as I was. That's the day I knew that God is with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that day I knew. There's a young girl who came to the service who had Down syndrome. Very, very bad Down syndrome. When she was brought into the church, she was drooling.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were carrying her. When I made an altar call, she came to the front to receive Christ. When she left, she was no longer drooling. She was walking on her own.
No way.
Yeah, that girl changed. The whole community knew about her. She became one of us. Unfortunately, she's passed on now. Those kind of things began to truly get out in the community, and the church started growing.
Did you at any point during that time think you were taking on a big job at that time? Because you were still relatively young.
22 years old.
Yes.
I did. Look, but I guess because of the call of God. And by the way, before Pastor Andre left, in prayer, God showed me he's going to leave. And God showed me that I'm going to be the next pastor, even if I never told anybody.
Okay.
Nor did I try to orchestrate things in that direction.
Yeah.
So when it happened, I knew it was of God. So honestly, I went into it. Yes, of course, still feeling burdened,
Of course.
feeling very inadequate, but knowing, look, let me do the best that I can, God helping me. So it was amazing. It was just unbelievable. But then 1 year later, 1984, we got a letter then from Rhema that they had received a directive from Rhema Tulsa, because Rhema here was allowed to use the name by Rhema Tulsa in Oklahoma. So when they heard that Pastor Ray had allowed other people to use the name Rhema, they were not happy about that.
Okay.
So they gave a directive that everybody else who's using the name Rhema must stop. They've only allowed Pastor Ray to use the name. So Pastor Ray called me, made me aware, and then he said, what's the name? Then I said, Grace Bible Church. That's how I gave the name Grace.
Where did it come from in your head?
Because when I received Christ, 5th of August 1978, among the many verses that touched my life was Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. For by grace are ye saved through faith. When I received Christ, they were not preaching the message of hellfire and brimstone. They were preaching the message of love and grace. And somehow that message had so impacted my life, and I felt, how about this church be a place where people can experience the love and the grace of God? Little did I realize that the name Grace is similar to my name, Mosa. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's only when people asked me several years later, oh, so you named the church after you. What do you mean? They say Mosa Grace. I said, nah. But it was because of Ephesians 2:8.
Yeah.
For by grace are ye saved. So that's how we became Rhema and changed to Grace. And I have the letters, by the way, even the change of the name. I have that letter. That
From
Pastor Ray,
head
yeah.
office.
Yeah,
Yes.
from Pastor Ray. And though we changed to become Grace, we never disconnected in our relationships.
So it stayed in some form, because relationship is one thing, but operational relationship, did it stay that way as well?
No, it was always been independent.
Ah, okay.
We've always, even when I came in, they never, and by the way, even the financing, my salary stopped as well. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, no. From day one, it has always been independent. But I guess that connection I had, I never discontinued that. We kept there going. Now I would go to the trainings, or the pastoral things and everything, and in the process got to know Pastor Ray. And by the way, another person big in my life, Dr. Elijah Maswanganye, who came when I was a young leader, 1985. You know, this is 2 years after I'm leading. And I've organized a marriage seminar when I'm single myself.
Like, what does he know?
And I've invited this man who is a international speaker. He comes to our church, and we're having this marriage seminar on a Saturday. He's going to preach as well on Sunday. And the people decided not to come to the seminar.
Jeez.
And the weather decides to add another complexity. It's raining. It's miserable outside. People don't show up. Everything goes wrong. Everything. The arrangements were, it was a mess. And I'm busy delaying everything because I'm hoping that more people will come. But the longer we delay, the more some people who were there start leaving. And I thought, well, he might
So
as
now
well
you have
speak.
less people.
Yeah, so now he spoke. I think there were 5 of us. 2 of them being my parents. One of them being me. And I'm thinking, this man is going to give me a dress down. I think this man is going to teach me a lesson or two because of what I've done. And Dr. Mashabela stands up, and for 10 minutes, he encourages me and tells me what a great leader I am.
Wow.
I never forget that. I never forget that. I will never in my life forget that. That's why he occupies such a special space in my life.
What did a message like that do to a young pastor like you at the time?
You know, when everything around you is falling apart, and somebody isolates what's happening around you and talks to you about who you are potentially in God. Because there's so many people who bad stuff happens around them. Failure happens around you. But that's not who you are. It's just what you're in. Failure doesn't define you. Those words coming from a man like that, that's what has affected me then in my love for young people and why I spend time with young pastors. I'm there, try to help them, try to talk to them, because I remember when someone helped me.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's for my commitment. Even today, I've got many young pastors that I'm assisting in ministry, not just in our church, all over the country.
Your church has been around now for 40 odd years.
It'll be 42 years this year.
Yes.
Yes.
You moved obviously
43
from
years,
43.
yeah,
Yes. You moved from the school.
Yes.
That's set up.
From Mavis Hall
Then
to the school.
Yes.
To a church called Church of the Holy Ghost.
Okay.
To a dilapidated school called Klengiwe.
Is it abandoned?
Oh yeah, there's no building now.
Okay.
It was totally dilapidated. It had been burned down when we used it.
Yes.
It had been made out of asbestos.
Okay. Yes.
Material.
Got you. Yeah.
It had been burned down during the riots.
Oh no.
You remember when Soweto was burning? It was burned down. 6 classrooms had been left standing, but they were all just one big hall. But it was a terrible place. We used that place. The stage there, we used dustbins that were inverted, and we put corrugated iron on those dustbins. Well, from far, my friend.
Stage.
When you stand on it, when you start dancing, the stage moves. Yeah.
And you kept on going.
Kept on going. I'm being honest with you. Kept on going. You know.
But what keeps you going? Because
vision, fulfilling mission, and a calling. When you are called for something and the vision is clear in your heart and God gives you the passion, I tell you, nothing is better than that. Whatever surrounds you is secondary. For me, it was about people's lives being impacted by the gospel. And we operated under, and you know, I often say to people, I'm grateful to God that we never started at the top.
yes.
Because it gives you an appreciation of people who are starting. And you understand their world. But also it says, when I talk to others, look, people, it's doable.
Yes.
We're not special. Please, we're not special in any way. You can do this. If you can have vision, if you can be focused on it, if you can do it because you feel called for it. Yeah. Right? Do it whether anyone supports you or not. Do it whether they give you money or they don't. Do it whether they give you accolades or not. But with that as well, I connected to people like Dr. Maswanganye, who were like my mentors. I went to training. I went to seminars that Pastor Ray was doing. I read books. So find something that will feed you.
Yes.
Because, like I said, at the time I was still like the only guy who knew what church was about. And even then, whatever I knew was very little. I'd never run a church before.
But did you learn anything from being in the mailing room?
Lots
Lessons that you used later on.
Lots of things. One, I had to learn how to manage so many things within this time, because what I didn't tell you is that I would go to work in the morning, and after work I would go to school. I was attending evening school.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Bible class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was at Rema Bible Training Center. So, they used to start work at 9 o'clock until 5 at Rema. I would leave home early to be at work at 7 so that I can study and pray. And I asked my boss to give me the keys. So I used to board a train at Intlanzani station 5 o'clock in the morning. So I would leave home at 4:30. No, it was 5:30. I'd leave home at 5, walk for 30 minutes. 5:30 is there. Disembark at Braamfontein, get a bus that goes to Randburg. And then I'd be at work between 7 and 7:30. And I'd study and I'd pray until about 9:15. Then we'd have devotions, and then we start working. Then I spoke to my boss to say, look, class starts at 5:30. If I dismiss at 5, the work I do, man, I need to dust up. Please, can you allow me to knock off at 4, but I'll work my lunch hour in?
Got you. Yeah.
He allowed me.
Sacrifice lunch.
Yeah. So I did that. Then I didn't earn a lot of money. Now, I had to pay for my tuition. I wanted to unburden my parents. I had to buy clothes. I had to buy the train ticket and the bus ticket. I had to have lunch, and I had to pay for my school tuition. And I wanted to save money to get married. Yeah. And believe it or not, David, by God's grace, I was able to divide money accordingly. I scaled down on what I eat. I didn't eat hamburgers and all that. No, I bought peanut butter. I bought cheese,
Mm.
and I would eat brown bread, peanut butter, and cheese with rooibos tea for my lunch.
Every day or often.
I had to, my brother. And there was a time when I would wear clothes that I was given. There was a guy called Fred Brothers who came from the U.S. who used to work with Pastor Ray. One day he brings these clothes to me. He says, Mosa, in your church there must be some poor,
Some poor kid.
There's some poor people that you can give these clothes to. So I open this clothes and I see this denim, man.
You're the poor.
And this jacket. So I go to him and say, Fred, look, I'll give away these clothes, but can I have these 2 items? He says, by all means. By the way, I went all the way to the U.S. to go and thank him, that man. No, I did. Sorry, I'm crying now.
Sorry, man. It sounds like a cry of joy, though.
No, it is. Yeah. So I saved up money. I learned at Rema, with all the work I had, how do I divide my time to manage different departments? How do I divide my little money? How do I manage to study and work? And by the way, at the time, Pastor Ray was fine, but I worked in an environment where it was all white.
Oh, of course.
They ignored me, not Pastor Ray, but some of the people who worked there. They didn't know my name. I would go into their offices to go and collect mail. They'd make me stand there for an hour without talking to me.
Sure.
I learned that people can confess Christ and behave differently.
On stage, they are all about
They are all, I
Christ.
love you with the love of the Lord, but that's not the way. So I had to believe in Christ, even when the people who sing Christ treated me like I'm trash.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was hard. It was very, very hard. So I had to learn all that. Funny enough, all those disciplines, when I became a pastor, I was able to use them. The first offering we had at our church in September of 1983 was 120 rands. Yeah. And for a long time, that's all there was. But I had learned how to take little money and make it big money. So we learned to do that. A discipline that's remained with us. That today, when you see our church with everything by God's grace that's been done, starts from that 120. I learned a lot of things and that's one of the things I've learned, that life lessons are generic and they cut across all disciplines. Frugality is frugality, whether it's in church or in administration is administration.
Whether it's in church or life.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And but also the other big thing I've realized is that if you don't have the culture of working, you can't be a good pastor.
Okay.
Pastors who run into ministry thinking that ministry is about prophesying, walking on the ceiling, hanging from the chandelier, and receiving offering.
Okay, you repeat that. Walking on the ceiling.
Walking on the ceiling. Some of these
I
people,
could
they are so
I could see
spiritual.
that.
They are so spiritual. I mean, they act up the spirituality. You
Yes.
think that it's pastors who are like that, who don't have the culture of working. Everybody that God called was working a secular job.
Yes.
Elisha was a farmer. David was a shepherd. Moses was a shepherd, the fisherman. Everybody got called was doing something. And that's one of the things for me that really gets me with this current understanding of ministry that some people have. They look at the glitz and the glamour. They see us on stage there preaching. They've never asked me the questions you've asked me.
Yeah.
They don't know about
The journey.
this. They don't know about that. But they don't know that even if you have all that experience is so much part of my DNA that if I were to start again in a class of 5, I would still be as content can be.
What has led to the culture of the type of charismatic churches that we have now?
I think the charismatic church, first of all, let me put it to you this way. In fact, even the term charismatism, what I've realized is most of these churches that call themselves charismatic churches don't even understand charismatic theology. For your information, that's one of the things.
Yes.
That's the first thing. So the teachings that have come about in the charismatic churches have become a mixture of all kinds of influences.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when we started interacting with some of the charismatic churches, particularly in the US, and sad to say, in the African American community, because I used to travel there, and I would see how some of it is packaged in glitz and glamour.
Okay.
In fact, most people don't know. A lot of this, what can I call, flamboyance, started in the 90s. See, the charismatic churches have been around for a long time. And for a long time, our focus was fun. But in the 90s, there was a big boom. That's when some of these African-American guys came here. Some of the people would come there. I used to travel a lot in the US, and I'd see the way they package themselves. And then the adoption of secular systems.
What
For
is
instance,
that? Yeah.
and I'll give you an example. Now, there's nothing wrong with marketing. We should do marketing.
Of course.
But if you're marketing a church, let's put it this way. Coca-Cola markets, let me withdraw. Products, when they market their product, the truth is this: what they're telling you about the product is only 80% true and 20% a lie.
So 20% color.
Yes.
It's
So there's an element of marketing where you have to use hyperbole.
true.
You have to
It's
lie.
the color.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, if I get people to market at church, if they do that, then it's a problem when it's the gospel.
Got you.
It's a problem
You
because
basically you're saying you can't put color
yes,
on the gospel.
but also people say I'll market you and put you on the map. So I become popular because someone has had to inflate figures, promote me. So when we started bringing, now I'll say we have marketing in our church.
Of course.
We've got to do marketing. But I think there's a fine line there. So when we started importing these things, and then when pastors started being called CEOs, when those who preach start demanding a fee, when I come, you give me so much, you make me sleep in this kind of a hotel, and
I'm driven.
I'm driven in this type of a car in the name of excellence, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The minute those behaviors came in, then we became a different genre of charismatism. And then people then wanted to be powerful. You got to see cripples walking, you got to see blind eyes opening. And yet when you read the Bible, David, when you go into, I don't know what to call it. It's not hieroglyphics, man. It's, if you go into the Bible history and count the years. Let me give you an example. From Acts chapter 2 to Acts chapter 19, there's a 20-year lapse period.
Okay.
But when you read it as chapter and verse, you think everything happened day after.
In one moment.
Yeah. So if there are 5 miraculous things that happened between chapter 2 and chapter 19, it happened over a 20-year period lifespan of time.
However, we see it as a movie that happens over 2 hours.
So people come to church, they want to have 2 miracles, 3 miracles every service. It's crazy. It's not possible. Even with the ministry of Jesus, if you count it, that's not how it happened. So people get obsessed with power, supernatural, that they have to lie, they have to cheat, they have to fake it, they have to pay people because I have to be seen to be powerful. And then the people who are leading, sometimes, unfortunately, they demand things from us that we can't give them. I'll give you an example. You meet people, they want you to give them a prophecy. Now, I've prophesied over people, but biblically, you can't turn the prophecy on and off as you want. You can't. But the people demand it.
Now you have to force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not there.
Even if it doesn't come from God even.
Oh, no.
Comes from another source.
Oh, no.
So we've really gotten into a lot of trouble as charismatic churches. And I'm very sad to see the misrepresentation. And then worst of all, the non-compliance to the laws of the land. People not registering, not using buildings that are compliant, not paying tax as they should. And then we became all Hollywood stuff. Everybody wants to do something. The church must be paid. We must be paid as pastors. There's all kinds of strange things that are going on. And what has happened, I look at the mainline churches and I admire them.
What do you admire
relate
about
a lot.
them?
The people have been taught there. Come and serve God. Leave the glitz and the glamour outside.
It's simple.
Simple. I've seen some of them volunteer, serve. They don't put They don't wear their achievement. You know, we take prominence and put it in the front row. You know, I'm happy to so's in my church. You know,
Yes.
and then the camera pans. They're sitting there. I think I don't know. It gets to me. It gets to me because we're losing the point. The point about church is about the lives of people being changed. Now, I'm not claiming to be perfect. I have lots of problems, lots of mistakes. But the minute we make the church Hollywood, and the minute we become celebrities as pastors, then we have missed God.
Is that where we are?
Not with everyone, but there are some, unfortunately. And my biggest concern is when the younger ministers learn those bad habits from us. And they think that's what being a man of God is. And we are defined by the size of car we drive,
The size
by
of church you have.
the type of watch we have, the
Yes.
size of church you have. Look, nothing wrong in having these things. As long as you don't brandish it and as long as you don't use it as a mark of success or as a sign that God is with you.
Yes.
Because you can get these things through other means and God is not involved in it.
That's true.
Yeah.
You'd get them as a drug lord.
Oh, yeah. You can do it. Yes.
What makes people, and South Africans in particular, follow such churches so much, probably more now in the past 20 years, give or take, than ever in the history of gospel in South Africa?
Look, I think we're living in difficult times, David. You know, people want to have money, people want to succeed, and people really want to see progress in their lives, which is part of what the gospel offers. But if that's the main pursuit, you know, Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." And his righteousness and all these things. See, God is not denying that we want the things. We all want the things. I mean, it would be ingenious of us, really. Disingenuous of us, rather, to claim we don't want the things. I want a nice car. I want a nice house. And I mustn't apologize when I have it. But is that the thing? Is that my main pursuit? It shouldn't be. It should be about God's kingdom. And God said, as a parcela, I'll give you these things, but the pursuit should be this. So, unfortunately, we've gotten our priorities all messed up. And what it does is that we then end up resorting to means that are not God to get those things. If we have to lie, cheat, steal church members, if we have to have certain things happen to our church to bring more people, you know, if we have to have certain people come just to be a crowd puller, you know, those type of things. Yeah. Now,
That's crazy.
But that's what we do. Unfortunately, that's what we do.
Wow. And
That's what we do. And some people look at us and they learn that from us.
and they repeat it.
They think that's how you run a church.
When you hear someone say, Mashabela,
Yeah.
we need to start a business. I say, okay, what business?
Yeah.
We need to start a church.
And people think it's about money.
Yeah.
You know, they think, and money has been now. We need money in the church. There's no questions. But that's not the pursuit.
So it's a competitive space. Or it has become that.
Unfortunately, people don't realize that it has become that. That's what we have made it to be. Because if my obsession is about a large church, right?
Then
And if I'm going to sink to any level to have a large church, then it's a problem. If I have to have fake miracles,
yeah.
if I have to prophesy, you know, if I have to have some famous person sit in the front row, right?
And the camera always pans to this person.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. Those things are bad, you know, and I think I go back to what I said when I was so emotional.
Yeah.
What are we going to say when we stand before God?
Yes.
Because God sees through all it. God is recording all of it. God is going to ask us, what are we going to say? What's the answer? Unless being a minister or a preacher has ceased to be a calling, it has become a career.
A business.
And a business. Then maybe we can do that. But if it's a calling, because if you look at the example we have of our Lord Jesus Christ, the example of Paul, If you look at, Paul talks about, in whatever state I am, I have learned therewith to be content. Whether I'm hungry, whether ho etsagalang. And there are times like that. But there are times it says, when I'm fed, when I've got it. He said, I've learned to be, contentment is the one thing, unfortunately, we are not accepting. Where you are, that's where you are. Where I learned the lesson, he said, when I was at Rema, I could only afford peanut butter
And bread.
and cheese. Yeah. That's where I am. Why must I want for a burger? I don't have the money for a burger. So what people do, they live beyond their capacity. They project what they're not. They inflate who they are. Sorry, even when God is not in it.
Are we fixated as churchgoers,
Yes,
Christians,
yes,
in this concept of miracles? Do we find ourselves, as you put it earlier, that if we went to a point of getting the dead wake from a coffin, that's how much we've
in
gone.
Inverted
That's how
commas,
far
of course.
we've gone.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we? Is it because the audience is fixated with seeing miraculous solutions in their lives?
Look, here's what I want to put this. And I asked myself that question a few years ago. Here's the reality, David. People realize that there are things that need God's intervention. Okay. Because sometimes you need that supernatural intervention. Yeah. Even if you've done all there is to do, there is some supernatural element that takes what you're doing to another level. And by the way, there are things that people suffer, sicknesses, diseases, that need God's intervention. I don't personally, this is just a personal view, I don't think the desire to see God's intervention is wrong in itself.
Okay.
It's not wrong because throughout history, you look at the ministry of Christ, people came because they had a crisis. This has happened, that's happened. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's the overzealousness. And unfortunately, we are not helping. By manufacturing these miracles.
That's it.
We are not helping.
Yeah.
You see. And also, it's not just the miracles, these prophecies. I found that people want to hear what God is saying without following what the Bible tells them.
Oh, no.
Because the Bible does tell us how God speaks to us. But they don't want that. They want the easier route. They don't want to discipline themselves to read the Bible and pray, spend a quiet time with God, know how the Holy Spirit leads you. They don't want to do any of that. They just get a prophet.
They want to get a connection, all the same.
But they want to live another life during the week. Aha. Live whatever, live it up. Come on Sunday, man of God, tell me what God's saying. And then pray for me to remove the curse. You see? So that's a problem. That's a problem. Now, but throughout history, people will remember, even in the most successful countries, first world countries, there are things that human effort cannot solve. Right? Yeah. There's things that only God can solve. And I don't think there's anything wrong in itself because we do need God.
If anything, I find your words almost apologizing for it. And I'll tell you why I say that. You almost make it comfortable for us to receive it. But I think at the core of it, we do have to say, we need God here.
Yes, we should.
It shouldn't even be a soft approach to that reality. And that's why when we're in trouble, in our quiet spaces, even if you portray yourself as this guy who's strong, I'll solve these problems myself, you kneel down and pray.
Oh, what about lives that get changed, people who are on drugs being changed?
That's it, yes.
Who else is God? Only God can do that. And this is where I say, and I'm grateful for what you've said, because to some extent, I think the abuse of this has affected us in a way that for some of us, you end up shying away from it.
And
I had to self-correct when it comes to that, because for years I have ministered in some of these things. And I'm grateful to God that it's not perfect, but there's track record. We can show you this, that but I drew back, and I remember in prayer, God was speaking to me to say, but why, what are you doing? And he's like, no, I don't want to be identified with those guys. But he says, but is it wrong in the first place for people to receive from me? You know, and I must be honest, I think it's been an area that I've struggled with, you know, because you on the one hand you feel that's not the way to do it.
You see it, that this is not,
It's
and yet
totally
you're in
not.
the same room.
And by the way, pre the time of this popularity, those things, I mean, I told you
Yes.
in 1983 about the young girl. See, there were these coffin guys were not there at that time.
No.
Yeah, but there was this girl, it happened, and we have stories after. Do you know we have a story? This one I'll never forget. I was teaching a series on cases and cures. We were at Homemakers. This is after 1986, I think, 87. And a lady brings a child for me to pray for. This child is wearing a helmet, though she is, I guess she was 4 years old or something like that. Now, a child of that age walks, but she's staggering.
Is that why she's wearing a helmet?
That's why she's wearing a helmet. If she falls, she may hurt her head. So I'm very curious. So this lady says to me, no. When I got married, I really struggled. These are her words, by the way. My relationship with my mother-in-law was never good. And my mother-in-law told me I'll never have a child. And should I ever have a child, that child will be a vegetable. These are this girl's words. Yeah. So mtana wazala. And I've taken this child for all kinds of things. No one can help this child. Somehow I sensed in my heart, I was talking to this lady, to not pray for the child, but to rather ask her to come and attend these services that are teaching principles there that will be helpful. This is at Homemakers. Here I'm preaching. During the service, it's all quiet. All of a sudden, there's a huge commotion to my left in the crowd. Huge commotion. I mean, I'm looking, I'm thinking, what? To find that this child who used to stagger is not staggering anymore.
Wow.
She's walking perfectly.
Yeah.
No staggering. So I look now because I know the story. And the mother stands and she's surprised. Because now, so everybody is surprised because they don't know about she came to see me in counseling. So I said, no, bring the child to the front, come tell people. She brings the child to the front, she tells everybody, we take off the helmet. Child is okay.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is 1987.
That's crazy.
1988. Yeah. No, we've had those type of things happen more than once. I can tell you story after story. People who could not conceive, had miscarriages, they were healed. I know about, there's a young lady, I don't know, the lady who used to attend Rhema. I don't know if she still attends Rhema. And the reason I know is because every time I went to Rhema, she would come see me. Here's her story. She falls pregnant out of wedlock.
Okay.
She is so hurt and depressed by what has happened because I think the father, the guy, whatever. This is when still at Homemakers, by the way.
Okay.
She decides, I'm going to go to church before I abort this child.
Oh, no.
Yes. She comes to the church.
A decision
remember,
is made.
She's made. I'm coming to this one service. After this, I'm going for abortion. She's sitting in the service. I'm preaching. Through the word of knowledge, I get to know there's a woman here. It's your first time in this church. You are expectant. You want to go and abort the baby. I want you to know God says, don't kill that child. That child will grow up to be an incredible child. Please, Kiakopa.
Yes.
Don't do it.
Wow.
And after the service, come and see me. Because I didn't want to embarrass her. Okay. Service ends. This lady comes. Yeah. So she's crying her eyes out. And I pray for her and whatever. She went ahead, got the child. Over time, she moved and started attending at Rhema. Every time I went to Rhema, she would bring that child.
Whoa.
The 1 year, I think this child was a prefect at school. Brilliant young girl. Unbelievable child. I used to call her my child.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. This is just 3 stories. I can tell you so many.
At the heart of, because it's easy for people to see them as miracles.
They are miracles.
Yes. And it's easy for charismatic churches that you've described earlier of make-believe miracles.
Yes.
To make these miracles
Yeah.
seem unbelievable.
Yes.
do we suffer that problem where some are saying, nah, there's nothing like this. These are made up. because we've seen people fly and walk on ceilings, as you said.
Look, even in the time of Christ,
Yeah.
there are people who said what he did was fake.
Well, of course.
So we just have to live with that reality.
Yes.
There will be those who, no matter how much you explain, no matter how much evidence you can give them, you can give them a doctor's report, they'll still say, it's fake.
And at the heart of it is that miracles happen every day. That remains a fact.
Yes, they do.
It remains a fact of life.
It remains,
Yes,
yeah.
that through prayer, your life actually can take a different turn.
Does. The thing, though, we must also remember in us ministering, when we minister in miracles happening through our ministry, let's just be careful to realize that we can't just turn it on and off as we want. And this is where I struggled, and I'm self-correcting.
Yes.
And not that I was turning it on and off. But when like in some places, like every Sunday or every day, there's this thing every day. And
someone is going to walk.
And some of it, when you look at it, but you're afraid to probe because you don't want to be
the guy who
calling what God is doing something else,
That's true.
Yeah, but that has caused so much damage that now even when people should receive from God, they no longer believe it's happening. And this is one of the things I've had to deal with in our church in teaching. Like last year, I taught on the gifts of the Spirit. Because I thought, look, let's go through the Bible. Because the Bible must be our foundation. God's word needs to be the filter we use. To look at, it should be the lens we use to look at anything. And if we don't use God's word, then it's big trouble for us.
You don't walk around believing that you have miracles in the tip of your fingers.
No.
You don't walk around believing that you can make the blind see, for example.
No.
You can make the staggering child walk.
No.
Yeah.
However, I do live with an awareness that if God wants to use me, may I be ready to be used by him.
Got you.
And it becomes a struggle because when God speaks to you about something, your human side says, is this God? Or if you know it's God, will it work? So I struggle with that all the time. But yes, I do. But I've learned to have the courage. I mean, even as recently, this is the most recent one. This one is very interesting. We're leading prayer in December. And morning prayer on Facebook.
Yes. The 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock
morning prayer. Yes.
So
your commitment to that is amazing.
We're grateful.
How you do it? It's don't you sometimes wake up and say,
well, I'm human too. But I think, like I said, the calling and the passion just it's just, I do get tired physically because I'm human.
You're human.
But my heart is always burning for it.
Amazing.
Mostly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell the story, please.
So
Sorry.
I lead the prayer, and during prayer, I start praying for somebody specifically, and I can sense as I'm praying that the Holy Spirit is guiding me to pray for someone whose life is in danger. They're going to be involved in an accident. Yeah. And through this prayer, they will survive the accident. That's the gist of it. So, but I don't want to tell anybody. But towards the end, the Holy Spirit says, no, say it. And I said, look, sorry everybody that as we were praying, I went on a tangent and you heard me pray differently. This is what I actually sense. Same week, I think the day after, a guy gets knocked by a car.
He called us on the radio.
Oh, by the way, I forgot about that.
He called us on the radio.
That's why he was crying
and told us about this.
That's why he was crying so much. This is now in December.
And you didn't even know this was happening.
I didn't know. He actually came to tell us later at the church. We got him at our crossover service to come and give a testimony.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So these things happen. And I think recently I've seen it happen more and more as one has self-corrected. Because, I think I got to a point where maybe I became a little too hurt by the abuse
of the miracles, so to speak.
But then God said, but what if I want to work in people's lives? You are a vessel I can use. No, I'm not the only one. But if if God would wants to use me, why, you know. And by the way, years ago in prayer time, God did tell me, this is how I'm going to use you in your life. 1980, when I was in Bible school, He showed me, this is how your ministry is going to work. This is how you're going to minister. This is how the flow of the Spirit is going to happen. The interesting thing is, even when God tells you, it doesn't happen the following day. It takes a long time to happen. Yeah. So I've seen it sporadically over the years, but I think the last year or so, it's increased quite a lot. It's never every week.
Of course.
And I can never know when it will happen. Yeah. So you just remain open.
You've practicalized the word of the Lord to everyday life experience.
Yeah.
You've pretty much simplified it and make people understand it a lot easier in their waking decisions.
Yeah. Yes.
What is SHAPE?
SHAPE is an acronym I use that helps people identify what they are either called for, or their career, or what they are wired for, whichever. Because many people live their lives not knowing what they can do with their lives. What's
True.
my career?
Most
what's
people.
Most
of us. We have no idea why we're here.
And by the way, even those careers or callings, I've come to realize over time, it may not just be one thing. It may be two things, but there'll always be a dominant one. Okay. So SHAPE, I use it as a spiritual assessment tool, I call it.
Okay.
And it's all based on biblical principles. Okay. The letter S stands for spiritual gift.
Okay.
When you read the Bible, there's 34 spiritual gifts in the Bible. And biblically, every person has at least one.
Example?
There's a gift of leadership in Romans 12.
Got you.
There's a gift of administration. There's a gift of teaching.
Okay.
Right? But then it includes pastoring and all of that. It's quite, it goes across all disciplines. All disciplines.
Yeah.
So there's 34 of them.
Yeah.
All right? And then the letter H stands for heart. By heart, I mean everybody is passionate about something. There's something that either drives your passion or makes you angry. When you see it happen, it makes you angry and you are asking the question, why doesn't somebody solve that?
Got you.
Okay, that's passion.
Yeah.
And all of us who are passionate about different things, or there's something that you really love, you want to live for, you can give your life for.
You do it for free.
Yes.
Yeah.
The letter A stands for ability.
Okay.
Ability is in two ways. There's God-given ability that we call talents. But there's ability that's acquired through training that we call skill.
Got you.
Right. So we have ability. All right. And then P stands for personal style. Everybody has got their signature.
True.
Even when you read the Bible, the two preachers can never preach in the same way. They may all teach, but they have different styles. Everybody's got their own way. And then E stands for experiences. All our experiences, God brings them into shaping who we become and what He uses us for. And the best example I always use is that of Moses.
Okay.
He gets born in a home where he has to be abandoned by his parents because of oppression. He gets adopted into a foreign home. He lives in it, though he is living in opulence. His heart is never at peace because he's not living among his own people,
Got you.
whom he sees being
Abused
every day.
Yeah.
So that's his experience. And when he sees them being abused and he sees what oppression does, Moses jumps into action. His passion springs up.
That's it.
He jumps in to try and help because that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
He finds out later that the king might find out what he did. He runs to Midian. He's there now for 40 years. He's 80 years old, thinking God will never use him anymore. And just at that point, God says, I'm going to draw on this guy's experience.
I have a new assignment for you.
I have an assignment. And he uses the words, Moses, I have seen the oppression of my people. Meaning, What you have seen, I have seen. And I've come down to deliver them. In other words, what you try to do, brother, that's what I'm trying to do. And therefore, I'm sending you. So what it means is that God uses your experiences to connect with you and assign you in line with your experiences, because when you serve in an assignment that lines up with your experience, you serve with passion and commitment because you know how it feels like to be there.
Yeah.
So I use that, and I there's lots of scriptures I can give. So I say everybody has a shape, and I love that sermon.
You like I said, you've practicalized it so easily for people to understand and consume.
Yeah.
What is the implication of ignoring these simple lessons for one's life, or not even ignoring them, not knowing that they exist?
People then live lives that are under-challenged. In the words of Dr. Miles Monroe, they go to the grave not having dispensed what they have.
Oh no.
And they make the grave rich because there's songs they should have composed that they didn't compose. There's buildings they should have built that they didn't build. There's societies they should have built up, they didn't build up. So as a result, people never empty themselves of what God has borrowed them. I think we are here on earth for borrowed time, and I think we are here on earth as men and women on assignment. So people live outside of their assignment and live mediocre life, because when you connect to your assignment, your calling, your passion, the work you do is so joyous. You don't get tired because your passion is always pumping you to move forward. If they pay you, it's a bonus, but you could do it for free because it gives you, it keeps you alive. And that's why I say we live in a world where people are not alive. You know, I challenge young people. I say,
We live, but we're not
I
alive.
challenge some young people. I say, some of you young people, there's no spark in your eye.
Oh no.
There's no spark in their eyes because there's nothing to live for or die for. You know, that they're passionate about, that when they wake up, I say, this is what I want to do with my life. And when you do it, it's life-giving. Passion makes you life-giving. Remember when Jesus spoke to the woman at the well in Samaria?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And when the disciples came back to give him food, he said, I didn't want food. He says, no, I have food to eat that you know of. My meat is to do the will of him that sent me. There's something that is almost like you eating food when you are doing God's will, and or rather you're fulfilling your calling.
Interesting you say it that way. If you're caught up in something you enjoy doing, food is the last thing on your mind.
Definitely. And you also don't get overworked
No.
because you don't get tired.
No, you could
And
do
here's
it for
another thing.
hours.
Here's another good thing. You don't run out of ideas because God kicks in, gives you ideas, fills you with wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and you find that your giftings line up with that thing. So, and it becomes easy to do.
Yes.
If you, let's put it this way, you make it look easy.
That's it.
Aha.
You make it. Those that are watching you think they can do it too because you make it look so simple.
Oh yeah, and then they try and do it, and then they don't understand how you did it.
When I was a
And
kid,
better still, Baba no a lawyer, you know.
when I was a kid, I thought I could play like Dr. Kumar.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because of how he made it look.
People who play in the area of gifting make it look so easy, and yet it is not that easy.
Why are we here? Why do we exist?
I think we are here as a people who are on borrowed time to do something in this world to make it better. And our assignment doesn't have to be the front page type of assignment. You may be like a Jokobeth who raises a Moses.
That's it.
Who all you do is to raise this child who's going to change the world. I think everybody is on earth to fulfill some assignment of some sort, regardless of the length of time we live. And I don't think we can only fulfill it when we live long. Jesus lived to be 33 and a half years old, but he said, I finished the work, you know. So everybody is here on an assignment of some sort in whatever sector. And unfortunately, not many people in the world know that. And unfortunately, for some who know it, they never live to fulfill it.
Do you know, I have prepped for 2 days for this conversation.
Wow.
I have scratched the surface of my prep. And I want to respect your time
Okay.
and your generosity
Thank you.
and pause. Because I realize that once you set me free, I will not stop.
No, I appreciate that.
And that's just
You can do a take 2 if you want. We can do
because
if
I
ever.
know your schedule is
It's
ridiculous.
tough. I have a morning prayer tomorrow, so I have to go to bed early. So I have to be up at 3:30 tomorrow morning. Yeah, and I have to prepare.
Let's pause for 1 second and take this small detour.
Yes.
What has technology done for the kind of work you do?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's puts you on a global stage. Yeah. But then it means you also must up your level.
True.
And remember that you're addressing an international audience. It's incredible. I must be honest with you. And I'll come back to my story about young people. And because the young people know it and understand it, my appreciation level for young people is just... Because during lockdown, by the way, there's a time when we couldn't have services.
Yes,
and I was
of course.
locked up in a room this size with young people, with cameras and everything. And I was speaking to the whole world.
Wow.
And they ran the church for 2 solid months. Me behind the mic, them connecting to television, Facebook, YouTube, our church website, and they were managing all that. You know? So technology is a great tool to spread the work you do.
Yeah.
But you must respect it and remember in your mind not to be shoddy in how you package yourself, because you land on a global platform, and therefore the consumption of it and the critique of it will be at global
global
level. Yeah.
Oh.
So if you package yourself in a clumsy way, and you give substandard stuff,
It shows. And it shows.
and people will comment on that level.
Of course.
But if you do it well, it's a great tool to advance whatever you do.
I want to touch 2 points quickly before we wrap up. What's your passion for pirates? Where does it come from? I'm a Sundowns fan, so I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
From a tower. I'm on
My-
top
my-
and
yeah,
I'm
I
looking down at
understand.
you
Yeah, I
and saying,
understand.
"What's wrong with this man?"
And remember, you must be humble, by the way.
Not when I'm winning so much.
My dad was an Orlando Pirates fan.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the stadium with my late father.
Okay.
He gave me a passion for Orlando Pirates. And you remember, there's a Sono who once played for Orlando Pirates.
Of course.
Yeah.
A great Sono.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be
A very great Sono.
It would be a grave mistake for a Sono to support any other team, but the one in which we
Coach,
have
what do they call him? What was his nickname again? I forget his nickname. The Sono.
Jomo Son.
Who was
What
no,
did they
no,
call
no.
him?
No, I don't even remember what nickname he
I
had.
forget
Yes.
his name. I was still fairly young, but but I like Orlando Pirates.
Amazing.
It's my team.
And your passion for ballroom dancing.
Yes.
Where does that come from? How good are you?
Well, I haven't done it in many years,
Okay.
frankly, but I used to do it as a young person. That's where I met my wife, by the way.
Oh.
She's the one who taught me how to dance ballroom dancing at a youth club. Then when they used to have youth clubs.
Yes.
And she was my first dance partner.
Deban.
Serious.
Amos, when you didn't go far, your shell, Amos.
No, but we lost touch with each other for many
Okay,
years.
okay.
So, and then when we reconnected years later, I fell in love with her. But she was a friend, and when I proposed to her, she actually said no. She said, "Not you. Of all people, not you." Hey, this lady.
What are you doing?
Yeah, not you. You are my friend.
Ay, ay, ay.
I say, yeah, I'm a friend, but I've fallen in love, you know. But yeah.
I guess she said yes eventually.
Well, she made me wait, that lady,
Deban.
for many months. I had to give an ultimatum.
Half clash.
No, I had to give an ultimatum. I said, Bonane, if it's a no, it's fine. But I'm asking, after this time, give me something final.
So,
Give me something final so that I should move on with my life. I get people move on.
So this no, yo shela, wa shela. And then they're saying, Emma.
Yeah, she said, no, I'll pray about it. Or I'll think about it. Hey, and she made me wait, that lady. Yeah, and by the way, she was studying at, she went to Unibo. So she was studying at Unibo. So she would come and we didn't have cell phones those days.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you have to wait for for us to be on holiday to get an answer. It was very frustrating. But I'm glad I waited.
It paid off. Eh?
It paid off.
You bought a piece of land in Soweto,
Yes.
and it got invaded
Yes.
by well, now it's shacks and it's
Yes.
a community of people.
Yes. Yes.
What is the story then? How did it
We
end?
bought a piece of land next to Chris Hani
Chris Hani
Baragwana, that
Baragwana,
whole area
yes.
ya Motswaledi.
Uh,
And before we built, people started building on it.
Jeez.
And then we tried to handle it through the structures. The structures were not working. But for some reason, council decided they're going to use that land to build houses for people. So they sent somebody who was dealing in that, and they pressured us to sell to them because otherwise they were going to expropriate.
Yeah.
And what they paid us was peanuts, Baba.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, here we are now. I have an issue to settle with our leaders.
It's still a part of your.
I couldn't believe how, as a black person, I could be treated like that.
Yeah.
These guys were heartless. Wow. We left 1 hectare, which we had protected, but they allowed people to still build on it.
Sure.
Yeah. And even today, we've tried to resolve it. They're taking us from pillar to post.
You drive past it probably every day.
Every day. Yeah. It was 6.4 hectares that we got.
Crazy. That's ridiculous.
6.4 hectares.
Wow. What is that? 60 square meters.
60,000 square meters. Yes, big piece of land.
That's
It is huge. We were going to build a church there.
yeah.
We're going to build a church there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When you look at what you achieved, and what do you say about it now and into the future? What is your reflection of it? Because from where we started with the story, it's very small beginnings.
Let me rephrase. To me, it's okay. Maybe let me not try to be humble about it, but I don't usually like to use the word achieve, nor do I want to use the word I, because it's pretty much being a team effort. I was privileged to be the leader of it. Of course, for many years I was the lead pastor and has remained being that. But what God has done in our lives, I'm very grateful, David, really, to tell you the truth. I never imagined we would be where we are, to be honest with you. I never have. And because we started at ground zero, it just makes it even more, moves my heart even more. Moves my heart even more. And we still want to do more. You know, we still have many churches we want to build. We've acquired land now where we're building a rehabilitation center.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've bought what I think it's like 4 hectares to build that on it for you know, in the words of Pastor Ray, the greatest level of living is not being blessed, but it's being a blessing. And for me, if I could see us become more of a blessing to our communities, and if I could see more of our leaders and our young pastors understand that's what the church is. Yeah. An extension of God's love and God's grace, and for us to build up our communities by the power of God, it would be the best thing ever. Yeah.
I want to wrap up.
Yes.
Management is telling me we have overextended our time. Do you know why I extended it? Because you're enjoying yourself.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. Oh, forgive. Yeah.
So I want to say to you, you are a blessing, and a lot of
Blessing.
people continue to express that. We got a call from the chairperson of the SABC. I didn't know that he listens to the show, and he sent a message to say he was listening to our show when we were on the radio.
Wow.
And wow, this was magic.
Wow.
He enjoyed it thoroughly.
Wow.
So I want to say to you, you probably, and I'm using him really as an example, but the reality of it is even the type of calls we got on that day was a reflection of the type of impact that you have on people's lives. Some you know and some you don't.
Yeah, many I
some
don't know.
you don't realize how far your work goes.
Yeah,
and that's why I want to say to you, you probably have no idea how far your work goes.
No,
And if you do, good for you. and I want to express gratitude for making the time. I don't know how you did it. You're busier than musicians. Your schedule is busier than artists. But how you made it, how you managed to make time to come and talk to us here on this platform. I want to say thank you so much. In my world, you're an amazing, amazing man, and carry on doing what you do. It's for me how easy you make the word of the Lord to everyday people. For me, that's far your greatest talent. Everything else I see, and I appreciate you, and I say thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, David, thank you, and thank you
Here's,
so much
here's
for
a
the
fist bump.
Thank you for the commendation, and I'm grateful to be used by God, and thank you really for this platform. Like I said when I started, please continue doing the good work.
Thank you.
And in particularly spreading good news.
Yes.
Our world desperately needs what you're doing. God strengthen you and bless you with your entire team. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
There you have it. Yeah, they don't get bigger. When I was like, thank you so much.
King David Studio Podcast.